The security footage showed it all. Ethan Hayes standing in the CEO's private office at midnight, Victoria Sterling's face streaked with tears, her hand reaching for his. By morning, half the company had seen the clip. By afternoon, both their careers hung by a thread. Someone wanted them destroyed, and they were just getting started. If you want to see how far obsession and power can push two people to the edge, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels. The fluorescent lights in the 47th floor hallway buzzed like dying insects. Ethan Hayes rubbed his eyes and checked his watch. 11:43 p.m. His daughter Maya would be asleep by now, curled up at his sister's apartment in Brooklyn with her stuffed giraffe tucked under one arm. He'd promised her pancakes in the morning, chocolate chip, her favorite. But first he had to finish this contract review, and the pages kept blurring together. He shouldn't even be here this late. Most of the building had emptied hours ago, leaving behind the hollow silence of a corporate tower after dark. But the Harmon acquisition was moving faster than anyone expected, and if Ethan wanted to prove he belonged among the senior analysts at Sterling Global, he couldn't afford to leave anything half-finished. Not when men with better pedigrees and fatter bank accounts were circling the same promotions like sharks. The break room coffee tasted like battery acid, but he poured another cup anyway. His reflection in the microwave door looked worse than he felt. Stubble creeping across his jaw, dark circles stamped under his eyes, tie loosened and hanging crooked. 32 years old, and he looked 50. That's what single fatherhood and 70-hour work weeks did to a man. He was halfway back to his desk when he heard it, a sound that didn't belong in the empty silence, crying, soft, muffled, coming from somewhere down the executive corridor. Ethan froze. The executive floor was off-limits after hours. Everyone knew that. Victoria Sterling's domain, the woman who'd built Sterling Global from a mid-tier consulting firm into a billion-dollar empire in less than a decade. The woman whose glare could make grown men stammer. The woman who'd once fired a VP in the middle of a board meeting for questioning her strategy. He should walk away. Mind his own business, go back to his cubicle and pretend he hadn't heard anything. But the crying continued, quieter now, almost desperate in its restraint. Ethan set down his coffee and moved toward the sound. His footsteps seemed too loud on the polished marble. The executive corridor stretched before him, all dark wood paneling and museum-quality art. Victoria Sterling's office sat at the end, double doors usually guarded by her assistant's desk. Tonight, the desk was empty. Tonight, one of the doors stood slightly ajar. Through the gap, he could see a sliver of the massive corner office, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan's glittering skyline, a desk the size of his entire cubicle. And there, silhouetted against the city lights, Victoria Sterling herself. She sat on the floor, not in her chair, not on the leather sofa, on the floor, with her back against the window, knees drawn up, face buried in her hands. Her shoulders shook with each sob. The sound of it cut through the silence like broken glass. Ethan had never seen her like this. Nobody had. Victoria Sterling didn't cry. She didn't break. She was ice and intellect, all sharp edges and calculated moves. But here she was, falling apart in the dark, and something about the rawness of it made his chest tighten. He should leave. He knew he should leave. Instead, he knocked softly on the door. The crying stopped instantly. Victoria's head snapped up, and even in the dim light he could see her face, makeup smeared, eyes red, expression shifting rapidly from devastation to shock to something hard and dangerous. "What the hell are you doing here?" Her voice came out rough, scraped raw. I was working late and I heard." Ethan stumbled over the words. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have." "No, you shouldn't have." She was on her feet now, wiping her face with the back of her hand. "Do you have any idea what floor you're on? This area is restricted." "I know, Are you okay?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. She stared at him for a long moment, and he could see her trying to reconstruct the armor, piece by piece. But her hands were shaking. "Get out," she said quietly. "Miss Sterling." "I said get out!" The words cracked like a whip. "And if you breathe a word of this to anyone, if you so much as hint that you saw me tonight, I will end your career so fast you won't know what hit you. Do you understand me?" Ethan took a step back, then another. But something made him pause in the doorway. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the memory of his own bad nights, the ones where he'd locked himself in the bathroom after Maya went to sleep and let the weight of everything crush him. Maybe it was just stupidity. For what it's worth, he said quietly, everyone breaks sometimes. Doesn't make you weak, just makes you human. He didn't wait for her response. He turned and walked away, heart hammering, half expecting security to tackle him before he reached the elevator. But nothing happened. He made it back to his desk, grabbed his jacket, and left the building in a daze. The subway ride to Brooklyn was a blur. He kept seeing her face, the tears, the vulnerability, the fury. He'd just committed career suicide. He was sure of it. By morning, she'd have him blacklisted from every firm in the city. But when he finally crawled into bed at 2 a.m., his phone stayed silent. No termination email, no angry voicemail, nothing. The next morning started like any other. Pancakes with Maya, who got chocolate chips in her hair and syrup on the kitchen table. The usual fight about whether she could wear her tutu to school. The rush to get her to his sister's place before the subway got too crowded. "Daddy, you look tired," Maya said as he buckled her into Aunt Rachel's car seat. "I'm okay, sweetheart. You work too much." She said it matter-of-factly, the way only a 6-year-old could. No judgment, just observation. Ethan kissed her forehead and promised to be home for dinner. Another promise he hoped he could keep. Rachel caught his arm as he turned to leave. "You sure you're all right? You've got that look." "What look?" "The one that says you're about to do something stupid, or something stupid's about to happen to you." "I'm fine," he lied. "Just a long night." The office felt different when he walked in at 8:30. Nothing had changed physically. Same cubicles, same coffee-stained carpet, same motivational posters that nobody ever read. But Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that everyone was watching him. He kept his head down and tried to focus on work. At 10:15, his desk phone rang. Internal number, extension 4701, Victoria Sterling's assistant. "Mr. Hayes, Ms. Sterling would like to see you in her office. Now, please." "Bo—" The line went dead before he could respond. Ethan's hands went cold. This was it, the execution. She'd probably had legal draft the termination papers overnight. He'd be escorted out by security, his desk contents in a cardboard box, his daughter's future a little less certain. The elevator ride to the 47th floor felt like ascending to a guillotine. The assistant, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia, gave him a look that could freeze nitrogen. "She's expecting you. Go straight in." The double doors to Victoria's office stood open. Morning sunlight poured through the windows, making the whole space glow. Victoria sat behind her desk, perfectly composed in a charcoal suit, hair pulled back, makeup flawless. No trace of last night's breakdown. She looked like she'd been carved from marble. "Close the door," she said without looking up from her computer. Ethan did. His palms were sweating. Victoria finally raised her eyes to meet his. They were the color of storm clouds, gray-blue and just as turbulent. "Sit." He sat. For a long moment, she just studied him. Ethan had the unsettling feeling of being dissected by someone who'd done this 1,000 times before. "Tell me about yourself," she said finally. "I'm sorry?" "Your file says you've been with the company for 3 years. Started in the mailroom, worked your way up to junior analyst, no MBA, no Ivy League degree. You're 32, single parent, daughter is 6. She recited the facts like ingredients in a recipe. "What the file doesn't tell me is why you were still here at midnight on a Thursday. The Harmon contract needed—" "I know what needed doing. I'm asking why you were the one doing it." Ethan chose his words carefully. "Because I want to be good at this. Because I need to be good at this." "For your daughter." "Yes." Victoria leaned back in her chair. "Last night never happened. You understand? You didn't see me. You didn't hear anything. You were never on this floor. I understand." "Good. Now let me be clear about something else. I don't do pity. I don't do charity. And I sure as hell don't reward people for being in the wrong place at the wrong time." Ethan's stomach sank. Here it came. "However," Victoria continued, "I do reward competence. Your analysis on the Harmon deal was the most thorough thing that crossed my desk yesterday. Better than half the work my senior team produced. So I'm moving you. Moving me? To the executive strategy team. You'll report directly to me. Salary increase of 40%, full benefits, and office space on this floor. Patricia will have the paperwork ready by noon. Ethan's brain stuttered to a halt. Why would you? Because you're useful and I don't waste useful resources. Also because you kept your mouth shut when most people would have sold that story to the highest bidder. She fixed him with a look that could drill through steel. This is a business decision, Mr. Hayes, nothing more. Don't make it complicated. I won't. See that you don't. You start Monday. Dismissed. Ethan stood on shaky legs. He was halfway to the door when Victoria spoke again. And Hayes? Thank you. For last night. For not being an asshole about it. He turned, but she was already back to her computer, the conversation clearly over. Ethan left in a daze that carried him all the way back to his desk, where 3 of his colleagues immediately descended. What was that about? Marcus from accounting practically vibrated with curiosity. Did she fire you? No, she promoted me. The words felt surreal even as he said them. Marcus's jaw dropped. Sarah from legal actually laughed. Promoted? To what? Executive strategy team. Bullshit, Marcus said flatly. But the email arrived at 11:47 a.m., official offer letter signed by Victoria Sterling herself. Ethan read it 3 times to make sure it was real. The salary number made his eyes water. He could afford a bigger apartment, better schools for Maya, maybe even a vacation that wasn't a weekend at his sister's house. He called Rachel during lunch break, voice shaking as he told her the news. Wait, back up, she said. The Ice Queen herself just handed you a massive promotion out of nowhere? What did you do? Save her cat from a tree? I can't really explain it. Try. I was in the right place at the right time, I guess. Rachel was quiet for a moment. Ethan, be careful. Women like that don't do favors. Everything has a price. I know. But he didn't know. Not really. He had no idea what he'd just walked into. The weekend passed in a blur of logistics, finding office clothes that didn't look cheap, explaining to Maya why Daddy was happy but also nervous, lying awake Saturday night wondering if this was all some elaborate test he was about to fail. Monday morning arrived with rain hammering against the windows. Ethan dropped Maya off early, ignoring her complaints about the weather, and arrived at Sterling Global at 7:30 a.m. His new office was a third the size of Victoria's, but still bigger than his old cubicle by a factor of 10. Window view. Actual door. A desk that didn't wobble. Patricia appeared at 7:45 with a stack of files. Ms. Sterling wants you familiarized with these by the 9 o'clock meeting. Coffee preferences? Black is fine. Smart answer. Most of the team orders complicated drinks and wonders why she looks annoyed. Patricia almost smiled. Almost. Word of advice, Mr. Hayes. She's brilliant. She's fair, but she's also exacting. Don't waste her time and you'll do fine. The files were dense. Acquisition targets, market analysis, competitor movements. Ethan absorbed what he could, his brain shifting into the focused state that had gotten him this far. He was 3 reports deep when Victoria's voice cut through his concentration. Ready? She stood in his doorway, perfectly pressed navy suit, hair in a severe bun. All business. No trace of the woman crying on her office floor. Yes, ma'am. Don't call me ma'am. It makes me feel ancient. Ms. Sterling in public, Victoria in private. She turned without waiting for a response. Conference room, now. The executive strategy team consisted of 6 people, all with credentials that made Ethan feel like he'd wandered into the wrong building. Harvard MBAs, former McKinsey consultants, a guy who'd apparently advised 3 cabinet secretaries. They looked at Ethan like he was a stain on the furniture. Victoria didn't acknowledge the stares. She launched straight into the meeting, dissecting the Harmon acquisition with surgical precision. When she asked for input, Ethan kept his mouth shut and listened. The others spoke in corporate buzzwords and hedged recommendations. Playing it safe. 40 minutes in, Victoria turned to him. Hayes, you've been quiet. What do you think? Every eye in the room swiveled his direction. Ethan's mouth went dry. About the Harmon deal specifically? About whether we should pull the trigger or walk away. He could feel the team waiting for him to stumble. The smart move was to agree with whatever consensus had formed, blend in, survive. But Victoria's eyes held a challenge. Walk away, Ethan said. Someone actually gasped. Andrew Chen, the former McKinsey guy, laughed. Care to elaborate? Victoria's expression gave nothing away. The valuations sound on paper, but their client retention numbers don't match the story management's selling. They're losing contracts faster than they're booking new ones. We'd be buying a company in the middle of a silent bleed-out. Their revenue's up 12% year over year, Andrew cut in. Those are solid numbers. Revenue's up because they're slashing costs and pumping the margin short term. Look at their R&D spend. It's dropped 40% in 18 months. They're eating their seed corn. The room went quiet. Victoria's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Anything else? She asked. Just that if we do buy them, we're paying premium price for a company we'll have to gut and rebuild. Might be cheaper to let them collapse and pick up the pieces. Andrew looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. Two other team members exchanged glances, but Victoria just nodded. Good. That's the assessment I came to Friday night. The rest of you spent 3 weeks telling me this was a golden opportunity. She closed her file. Hayes is right. We walk. Meeting adjourned. The team filed out in sullen silence. Andrew shot Ethan a look that could peel paint. When they were alone, Victoria gathered her materials without looking up. You made enemies just now. I noticed. Does that bother you? Rather have enemies than make bad calls to fit in. Victoria's mouth twitched. It might have been a smile. We'll see if you still feel that way in a month. Get back to work. The next 3 weeks were baptism by fire. Victoria ran her team hard, expecting results yesterday and perfection the day before. She had no patience for excuses, no sympathy for personal problems, no tolerance for mediocrity. She was demanding, brilliant, and occasionally terrifying. She was also, Ethan discovered, deeply lonely. It showed in small moments. The way she'd linger after meetings, as if reluctant to return to her empty office. The phone that never rang with personal calls. The weekends where her calendar showed nothing but work. She was surrounded by people all day, every day, and completely alone. Ethan recognized it because he'd felt it himself. The isolation that came from being defined by a single role, CEO, single parent, until everything else withered away. They started working late together, not every night, but often enough that it became a pattern. Victoria would call him in around 7 after the rest of the team had left, and they'd talk through strategy until midnight. Somewhere in those quiet hours, the armor started to crack. It happened gradually. A comment about her parents, who had died in a car crash when she was building the company. A mention of her ex-husband, who'd left her the day after her second miscarriage because he couldn't handle the pressure anymore. Small revelations, dropped like breadcrumbs. Ethan reciprocated in kind. Told her about Maya's mom, who'd walked out when their daughter was 8 months old. About the years of struggling to afford daycare while working 3 jobs. About the terror of being solely responsible for another human being. You're good at it, though, Victoria said one night, apropos of nothing. They were in her office, Chinese takeout containers scattered across her desk. Being a father. I try. No, you are. I can tell, the way you talk about her. She picked at her noodles. I always wanted kids. Built this whole timeline in my head. Company by 30, marriage by 32, first kid by 34, worked out great. The bitterness in her voice was sharp enough to cut. You're only 38, Ethan said. That's not ancient. Might as well be. This job doesn't leave room for much else. By the time I get home, I'm too tired to think about dating, and most men can't handle a woman who makes more money and works longer hours than they do. Their loss. Victoria looked at him then, really looked at him, and something passed between them that made Ethan's chest tighten. He should look away. He didn't. You should get home, Victoria said quietly. Your daughter needs you. Yeah. Ethan stood, gathering his things. See you tomorrow. Hayes? She caught his arm as he passed. Her hand was warm through his shirt sleeve. Thank you. For this. For treating me like a person instead of a title. Anytime. It was a dangerous word. They both knew it. The shift happened so gradually that Ethan didn't notice until he was already falling. Their late nights became longer. Their conversations more personal. Victoria started asking about Maya, remembering details. Her favorite books, her upcoming school play, the fact that she wanted a dog, but Ethan's building didn't allow pets. One Friday evening, Victoria did something unprecedented. She left the office at 6. "I need you to come with me," she said, appearing at Ethan's door. "Where?" Just come." They took her car, a sleek Mercedes that probably cost more than Ethan had made in 5 years. She drove in silence through Manhattan traffic, finally pulling up in front of an upscale pet store in Chelsea. "What are we doing here?" Ethan asked. Victoria was already out of the car. "You said Maya wants a dog. Let's get her a dog." "I can't have pets in my building." "So move. I'll cover the security deposit on a new place. Consider it a signing bonus I forgot to include." Ethan stared at her. "You're serious? Do I look like I joke about real estate?" She was already walking toward the store. "Come on, I want to meet this daughter of yours who's apparently raised you right." They spent 2 hours in that pet store. Victoria, the woman who made Fortune 500 CEOs sweat, sat on the floor playing with puppies. She actually laughed, when a golden retriever puppy climbed into her lap and licked her face. "This one," she declared. "This is the one. Victoria, I can't eat." "Yes, you can, and you will. Every kid should have a dog." Something sad crossed her face. "I had one growing up. Best friend I ever had." She bought the puppy, along with enough supplies to open a pet store of their own. Insisted on driving them to Brooklyn to surprise Maya. Ethan texted his sister, warning her about the incoming chaos. Maya's reaction was everything Victoria had hoped for. She burst into tears of joy, threw her arms around the puppy, and declared it the best day of her entire life. Then she looked up at Victoria with wide, awed eyes. "Are you Daddy's boss?" "I am." "Are you nice to him?" Victoria's expression softened. "I try to be." "Good, because he works really hard, and sometimes he's sad even when he smiles." The observation hit Ethan like a punch to the chest. Victoria's hand found his, squeezed once, then let go. "I promise to be nice to him," she told Maya seriously. "Cross my heart." They stayed for dinner. Rachel made spaghetti and spent the entire meal shooting Ethan. Looks that clearly said we need to talk later. Maya chattered non-stop about puppy names, finally settling on Biscuit. Victoria listened with genuine interest, asking questions, engaging with a 6-year-old like her opinions actually mattered. When it was time to leave, Maya hugged Victoria's legs. "Thank you for Biscuit. You're the best boss ever." Victoria's eyes went suspiciously bright. "You're welcome, sweetheart." Outside, standing next to her Mercedes in the Brooklyn twilight, Victoria turned to Ethan. "Thank you for letting me intrude." "You didn't intrude. You just gave my daughter the best day of her life." "I had fun. I don't remember the last time I had fun." She looked up at him, and in that moment, she wasn't the fearsome CEO, just a woman who'd forgotten what it felt like to be part of something warm and real. "This is dangerous, what we're doing." "I know. We should stop before it gets complicated." "Probably." Neither of them moved. The space between them felt electric, charged with everything they weren't saying. Victoria's phone buzzed. She ignored it. "I should go," she said. "Yeah." "Ethan?" His name sounded different in her mouth. Intimate. "I'm glad you walked past my office that night." "I'm glad you didn't just leave." "Me too." She got in her car and drove away. Ethan stood on the sidewalk until her taillights disappeared, his heart hammering, knowing with absolute certainty that they'd already crossed a line they could never uncross. Rachel found him 10 minutes later, still standing there like an idiot. "Okay," she said. "Now, are you going to tell me what the hell is actually going on?" Ethan looked at his sister, the person who'd raised Maya when he was working double shifts, who'd loaned him money when the rent was due, who'd never once made him feel like a burden. "I think I'm in trouble," he said quietly. "Because of her?" "Because I'm falling for her, and it's the worst possible idea." Rachel was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed. Well, at least your terrible decisions come with generous gifts. Come on, Maya's probably already got that puppy sleeping in her bed. They went inside, but Ethan couldn't stop thinking about the look in Victoria's eyes. The loneliness, the hope, the fear. He was falling, and there was nothing to catch him but the certainty that this would end in wreckage. The only question was how much damage they'd both take when they finally hit bottom. The rumors started 3 days after the puppy incident. Ethan first heard them in the break room where 2 junior associates went silent the moment he walked in. Their expressions shifted from animated gossip to forced neutrality so fast it gave him whiplash. He grabbed his coffee and left, but the damage was done. He knew that look. He'd seen it before, in high school, when the popular kids had decided someone was worth destroying. By Wednesday, the whispers had spread through the office like mold. People stopped talking when he approached. Eyes followed him down hallways. Marcus from accounting, who'd been friendly enough before, suddenly found reasons to avoid him. Sarah from legal actually crossed to the other side of the corridor when she saw him coming. "What's going on?" Ethan asked Patricia during a rare moment when Victoria was in back-to-back meetings. Patricia looked at him over her reading glasses. Her expression was carefully blank. "You're a smart man, Mr. Hayes. I'm sure you can figure it out. People think something's happening between me and Victoria. People always think something. This office runs on speculation and spite." She went back to her typing. "My advice? Keep your head down and do your job. The noise will pass." But the noise didn't pass. It got louder. Andrew Chen cornered him in the parking garage Thursday evening. Ethan was heading to his car when Andrew's BMW pulled up, blocking his path. Andrew got out, all-expensive suit, and practiced contempt. "Let me give you some friendly advice," Andrew said, though his tone suggested he wouldn't know friendly if it bit him. "Whatever angle you're playing with Victoria, it's not going to work." "I'm not playing any angle." "Right. You just happened to jump from the mailroom to the executive team in 3 years. You just happened to catch her eye. You're just that naturally talented." Andrew smiled without warmth. "I've seen guys like you before." "Think you can sleep your way to the top, bypass the work the rest of us put in?" Ethan's hands curled into fists. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I? Everyone's seen how she looks at you, how you disappear into her office for hours, how she suddenly cares about your personal life when she barely remembers the rest of our names." Andrew stepped closer. "You're out of your depth, mailroom, and when this blows up in your face, and it will, don't expect any of us to catch you." He got back in his BMW and drove off, leaving Ethan standing there with rage burning in his chest and fear knotting his stomach. Because Andrew wasn't entirely wrong. The dynamic between Ethan and Victoria had shifted into territory neither of them had planned for. The late nights felt different now, charged. Every accidental touch lingered. Every shared look carried weight, and people had noticed. Victoria herself seemed oblivious to the growing storm. Or maybe she just didn't care. Friday afternoon, she called Ethan into her office and shut the door. He could feel eyes tracking the movement, people taking mental notes. "I need you in Chicago next week," Victoria said, pulling up a presentation on her screen. "The Meridian Group is shopping for acquisition partners. I want us in the room." "The whole team?" "No, just us. I don't trust Andrew not to sabotage this with his condescending bullshit. And the rest of them are too timid to close a deal this size." She glanced at him. "Problem?" "Yes," Ethan wanted to say. "Going on a business trip alone with you is gasoline on a fire that's already burning out of control." Instead, he said, "When do we leave?" "Monday morning. We'll be there 3 days. Patricia will book the hotel and flights." Victoria's expression softened slightly. "I know this is a lot. If you need to arrange things for Maya, my sister can handle it. It's fine." "Good." She turned back to her screen, and Ethan knew he was dismissed, but he didn't move. "Victoria, people are talking." She didn't look up. People are always talking. It's what they do when they're too mediocre to actually accomplish anything. They're saying we're involved. That got her attention. Victoria's eyes snapped to his, cool and assessing. "And are we?" The question hung between them like a lit match over gunpowder. Ethan could lie. Should lie. Instead he said, "I don't know what we are." Victoria stood slowly, came around the desk. She stopped close enough that he could smell her perfume, something expensive and subtle that made his head swim. Her eyes searched his face. "We're colleagues," she said quietly. "We're two people who work well together. Anything else is complicated and stupid and would destroy both our careers." "I know. So we keep it professional. We do our jobs. We ignore the noise." "Right." Neither of them moved. The air felt thick, hard to breathe. Victoria's hand came up, almost touched his face, then dropped. "Go home, Ethan. Kiss your daughter. Play with that ridiculous puppy. And stop looking at me like that." "Like what?" "Like you're trying to figure out if I'm worth the risk." Her voice went rough. "I'm not. I'm a workaholic with trust issues and a track record of pushing away everyone who gets close. You deserve better." "Maybe I don't want better. Maybe I just want you." The words escaped before he could stop them. Victoria's breath hitched. For one wild moment, Ethan thought she might close the distance between them, might finally admit what they'd been dancing around for weeks. Instead, she stepped back. "You don't mean that. You're grateful for the opportunity I gave you, and you're confusing gratitude with something else." "Don't tell me what I feel. Someone has to, because you're clearly not thinking straight." She moved back behind her desk, rebuilding the professional distance. "We leave Monday at 6 a.m. Don't be late." Ethan left before he said something they'd both regret. He made it to his car before his hands started shaking. Rachel was right. He was in trouble. The kind of trouble that didn't have easy exits. The weekend crawled by in a haze of anxiety. Maya asked why he seemed sad, and Ethan lied and said he was just tired. Biscuit the puppy destroyed one of his work shoes and threw up on the carpet. Rachel came over Sunday night with wine and questions. "You're really going to Chicago with her? Alone?" "It's a business trip, Rachel." "It's a hotel room and 3 days away from everyone watching." Rachel poured herself a second glass. "I know you think you can handle this, but I've seen how you get when you care about someone. You go all in, and this woman, she's not someone you can go all in with." "Why not?" "Because she lives in a different world, because she has power over your career, because if this goes wrong, you lose everything, your job, your reputation, maybe your ability to provide for Maya." The last part hit home. Ethan stared at his own wine glass. "I know all that, but I can't seem to make myself care enough to stop." Rachel sighed. "Just promise me you'll be careful, for Maya's sake, if not your own." "I promise." It was another lie. He was already past the point of careful. Monday morning came too fast and too slow at the same time. Ethan left Maya with Rachel at 5 a.m., ignoring the knowing look his sister gave him. The car Victoria sent picked him up at 5:30. She was already inside, immaculate in a gray suit, laptop open, completely focused on work. "Morning," Ethan said, climbing in. Victoria glanced up. "Morning. I forwarded you the Meridian briefing materials. Read them on the plane. We need to be sharp for this." So it was going to be all business. Fine. Ethan could do business. He pulled out his tablet and dove into the files, trying not to notice how close they were sitting, how her knee almost touched his every time the car hit a bump. The flight to Chicago was more of the same. Victoria worked, Ethan worked, neither of them acknowledged the tension crackling between them. They landed at 9, went straight to the hotel to drop their bags, and were in the Meridian Group's conference room by 10:30. The meeting was brutal. The Meridian executives were sharp, skeptical, and determined to extract maximum value for minimum commitment. Victoria matched them point for point, never backing down, never showing weakness. Ethan fed her data when she needed it, jumped in with analysis when she signaled, played the perfect second. By the time they broke for lunch, they'd made progress but hadn't closed the deal. The Meridian CEO, a silver-haired shark named Douglas Preston, invited them to dinner that evening to continue discussions. "Excellent work in there, Say," Victoria said once they were alone in the elevator back to the hotel. "You read the room perfectly." "Thanks. You were pretty impressive yourself." "I know." She said it without arrogance, just fact. The elevator doors opened onto their floor. They walked down the hallway in silence. Victoria's room was 1804. Ethan's was 1806, right next door. Of course it was. "Get some rest, Victoria said, sliding her keycard. "Dinner's at 7. Wear the navy suit, not the gray. Preston's old school. He'll respect the formality. Okay. She paused in her doorway. And Ethan? Stop looking at me like that. We're in public. There's no one here. There's always someone. She disappeared into her room before he could respond. Ethan made it into his own room and collapsed on the bed, staring at the ceiling. 3 days. He just had to survive 3 days. He managed 4 hours. At 6 o'clock, his phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. Room service is terrible. Come next door. I ordered enough for 2. Ethan should have said no, should have ordered his own room service, kept the walls between them. Instead, he found himself knocking on 1804 30 seconds later. Victoria answered in jeans and a sweater, hair down, no makeup. She looked younger this way, more vulnerable, more real. Come in before someone sees you lurking in the hallway, she said, pulling him inside. The room was identical to his, but felt completely different because she was in it. Her laptop sat open on the desk, papers scattered everywhere. The TV played CNN with the sound off. Room service had indeed delivered enough food for a small army. I didn't know what you'd want, so I got options, Victoria said, gesturing to the spread. Help yourself. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then Victoria said, You were good today, really good. Preston was impressed, I could tell. He's going to make us sweat for it, though. Of course he is, but we'll close it. I always close. She took a sip of wine. Can I ask you something personal? Sure. Why did she leave, Maya's mother? Ethan hadn't expected that. He set down his fork. Parenthood wasn't what she thought it would be. She had postpartum depression, but she refused to get help, said she just needed space. One day I came home from work, and she was gone. Left a note saying she couldn't do it anymore. Maya was 8 months old. Have you heard from her since? Christmas cards sometimes. Birthday cards for Maya that she never signs. I don't even know where she is anymore. Victoria's expression was difficult to read. Do you hate her? I did, for a long time. Now I just feel sorry for her. She's missing everything. Maya's first words, first steps, first day of school, all the good stuff. He met Victoria's eyes. You can't get that time back. Once it's gone, it's gone. Something shifted in Victoria's face. Pain, longing, regret, all of it flickering past too fast to name. I had a daughter, she said quietly. For about 10 minutes. She was born too early, 26 weeks. They put her in my arms and I held her while she died. Victoria's hands were shaking. That was 7 years ago. Sometimes I can still feel the weight of her, how small she was, how perfect. Ethan's chest felt like it was caving in. Victoria, my husband blamed me, said I worked too much, stressed too much, that it was my fault she came early. Maybe he was right. Maybe if I'd slowed down, taken it easier. Her voice cracked. After she died, he looked at me like I'd murdered our child. We tried again, got pregnant again, lost that one too at 12 weeks. He left 3 days later, said he couldn't be with someone so broken. He was wrong, Ethan said fiercely. You're not broken. You don't know that. Yes, I do. He moved closer, took her hand. You're brilliant and strong and you've built something incredible. One asshole's opinion doesn't define you. Victoria laughed, but it came out choked. You always do this, make me feel like maybe I'm not as damaged as I think I am. That's because you're not. She looked at him then, really looked at him, and Ethan saw the exact moment she made her decision. Victoria leaned in, and he met her halfway, and then they were kissing and it felt like falling off a cliff and flying at the same time. She tasted like wine and desperation. Her hands tangled in his hair, pulling him closer, and Ethan wrapped his arms around her waist and kissed her like she was oxygen, and he'd been drowning. All the weeks of tension, all the careful distance, all the things they hadn't said came pouring out in that kiss. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Victoria's eyes were wide and stunned. We can't do this, she whispered. I know. It'll destroy everything. I know. I'm your boss. This is completely inappropriate. I don't care. Victoria made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. You should care. You should run. I'm a disaster, Ethan. I ruin everything I touch. Then ruin me. He kissed her again, softer this time. I am already ruined anyway. She pulled him toward the bed, and Ethan went willingly, knowing this was a mistake, knowing they'd both pay for it, knowing he'd do it anyway because the alternative, walking away, pretending this wasn't happening, was unbearable. They fell onto the bed in a tangle of limbs and desperation. Victoria's sweater came off first, then Ethan's shirt. Her skin was warm under his hands, her breath hot against his neck. They moved together like they'd been doing this for years instead of minutes, finding rhythms that fit, learning what made the other gasp. Afterward, they lay tangled in the sheets, not speaking. Ethan traced patterns on Victoria's shoulder while she rested her head on his chest. He could hear her breathing, feel her heartbeat. This changes everything, Victoria said finally. Yeah. We can't tell anyone, not yet. Maybe not ever. I know. She propped herself up to look at him. I'm serious, Ethan. If the board finds out, they'll force me to fire you. Conflict of interest, abuse of power. It doesn't matter that this is real. They'll see it as a liability. So we're careful. Can we be? Can you really go back to the office and pretend this didn't happen? Ethan kissed her forehead. I've been pretending for weeks already. This just changes what I'm pretending about. Victoria laughed despite herself. You're insane. Probably, but I'm insane about you. So there's that. She kissed him again, slow and deep, and they stopped talking for a while. Later, much later, Ethan's phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. How's Chicago? Behaving yourself? He should tell her the truth, should admit he'd crossed every line he'd promised not to cross. Instead, he typed back, all good, just work. Victoria watched him set the phone down. You're lying to your sister. To protect this. To protect you. Noble. Stupid, but noble. She sighed. We should sleep. Dinner with Preston is in... She checked the clock. Shit, 40 minutes ago. They'd missed the dinner entirely. Ethan started laughing, and after a moment, Victoria joined him, and they lay there giggling like teenagers who'd gotten away with something. Preston's going to be furious, Victoria said. Think we can blame it on food poisoning? From the room service we didn't eat? Brilliant plan. She rolled on top of him, pinning him to the bed. Worth it, though. Yeah? Definitely worth it. She kissed him once more, then reluctantly pulled away. I should text Preston. Reschedule for tomorrow, and you should go back to your room before housekeeping comes by and gets ideas. Ethan didn't want to leave. Wanted to stay wrapped up in her. Consequences be damned. But Victoria was right. They had to be smart about this. He gathered his clothes, got dressed, while Victoria watched from the bed. At the door, he turned back. No regrets? He asked. Victoria's smile was small but genuine. Ask me again when we don't get fired. Ethan slipped back to his room, heart racing, mind spinning. He'd just slept with his boss, with Victoria Sterling, the woman who'd been crying on her office floor 2 months ago, the woman who'd given his daughter a puppy, the woman who was brilliant and broken and somehow saw something in him worth keeping. This was going to end badly. He knew that. But as he lay in bed replaying every moment, every touch, every whispered word, Ethan couldn't bring himself to care. Some mistakes were worth making. The next morning brought reality crashing back. Victoria was all business at breakfast, barely looking at him, completely focused on the rescheduled meeting with Preston. Ethan followed her lead, playing the professional colleague, ignoring the way his body remembered hers. The meeting went better this time. Preston agreed to terms pending board approval on both sides. Victoria shook hands, sealed the deal, and maintained perfect composure the entire time. Only Ethan noticed the way her fingers trembled slightly when she packed up her briefing materials. They flew back to New York that afternoon. In the car from the airport, Victoria finally let the mask slip. That was close, she said quietly. Preston buying the food poisoning story? All of it. I almost touched your hand in the conference room. Almost looked at you the wrong way. She stared out the window. We can't afford mistakes like that. So what do? We're careful. We keep this completely separate from work. No touching at the office, no looks, nothing that anyone can use against us. And outside of work? Victoria's hand found his in the space between their seats. Outside of work, I want everything. Ethan squeezed her fingers. You've got it. They rode the rest of the way in silence, hands linked where no one could see. But someone did see. The photos showed up Friday morning. Ethan arrived at his office to find a manila envelope on his desk. No return address. No note. Inside were printouts from the hotel in Chicago. Ethan and Victoria entering her room. Timestamp, 6:47 p.m. Another shot of Ethan leaving, clothes rumpled, hair messy. Timestamp, 11:23 p.m. The implication was crystal clear. Ethan's blood turned to ice. He grabbed the envelope and went straight to Victoria's office, bypassing Patricia's protests. Victoria looked up, annoyed, then saw his face. What happened? He dropped the envelope on her desk. She opened it, and he watched the color drain from her face. Who sent this? She asked, voice deadly calm. No idea. It was on my desk when I got in. Victoria studied the photos. These are from the hotel security cameras. Someone pulled the footage. And someone wants us to know they have it. This is a threat. They're letting us know they can destroy us whenever they want. Victoria's jaw tightened. The question is what they want in return. The answer came an hour later, delivered via email to both of them. The message was short and brutal. Resign from Sterling Global by end of business today, or these photos go to the board, the press, and every major outlet in the city. Your choice. It wasn't signed, but Ethan knew who was behind it. Andrew Chen. Had to be. The timing, the malice, the calculated cruelty. It had his fingerprints all over it. Victoria read the email twice, then calmly closed her laptop. What are you going to do? Ethan asked. Nothing. Victoria, let me rephrase. I'm not resigning. I'm not being blackmailed by some vindictive little shit who thinks he can intimidate me. She stood, straightened her suit. If they want a war, they'll get one. This will destroy your reputation. Maybe. But I didn't build this company by running scared every time someone threatened me. She met his eyes. I won't ask you to stay for this. If you want to resign, I'll understand. I'll even write you a recommendation that'll get you hired anywhere in the city. Ethan thought about Maya, about the life he'd built for her, about the risks of staying, the certainty of losing everything if this went public. Then he thought about Victoria, alone in her office, crying. Victoria, holding a puppy in a pet store. Victoria, whispering his name in the dark. I'm not going anywhere, he said. Victoria's expression softened. You're an idiot. Yeah, well, you bring it out in me. She almost smiled. Then her phone rang. Patricia's voice came through the speaker, tense. Ms. Sterling, the board is requesting an emergency meeting. They want you in the conference room, now. Victoria and Ethan exchanged looks. Too fast. The blackmailer had already made their move. I'll be right there, Victoria said. She turned to Ethan. Stay here. Don't make this worse. Like hell. If they're coming for you, they're coming for both of us. Ethan, I'm not letting you face this alone. Victoria's eyes went bright. She nodded once, sharp and decisive. Then let's go to war. They walked to the conference room together, side by side, and Ethan knew that whatever happened next, whatever they faced, at least they'd face it together. The board was waiting. 8 faces, all grim. And there, sitting in the corner like a spider in its web, was Andrew Chen. Douglas Whitmore, the board chairman, stood as they entered. His expression was carved from stone. Miss Sterling, Mr. Hayes, thank you for joining us. We have some very serious matters to discuss. Victoria took her seat at the head of the table, every inch the CEO. Ethan stood behind her, silent support. I'm aware of why you called this meeting, Victoria said calmly. Let me save everyone some time. Yes, Ethan Hayes and I are involved. Yes, we should have disclosed it sooner. No, it has not affected our professional judgment or the performance of this company. If you check the numbers, you'll see we've had our best quarter in 3 years. Whitmore's eyebrow raised. You're not denying it. Why would I? I'm not ashamed of anything I've done. The appearance of impropriety is just that. Appearance. Ethan earned his position through merit. I have documentation of every project he's worked on, every analysis he's produced, All of it excellent. All of it justifying his advancement. Andrew leaned forward. That documentation could easily be fabricated after the fact. Victoria's eyes cut to him like knives. Could be, but isn't. And unless you have actual evidence of wrongdoing, not innuendo, not implications, but evidence, this board has no grounds to take action against either of us. We have photos, Whitmore said. Compromising photos from a business trip. You have photos of 2 consenting adults entering and leaving a hotel room. Last I checked, that wasn't illegal or even against company policy, provided both parties maintain professional conduct in the workplace. Victoria's voice went hard. What I want to know is who provided those photos, who's been surveilling company executives, who violated federal privacy laws to obtain security footage for the purpose of blackmail. The room went very quiet. Because that, Victoria continued, is actually illegal, and I will pursue charges against whoever is responsible to the fullest extent of the law. Whitmore shifted uncomfortably. The source of the photos is irrelevant. Like hell it is. Someone on this board or someone connected to it illegally obtained private surveillance footage. Someone used that footage to threaten resignation. That's corporate espionage and blackmail. 2 felonies. Victoria stood. So, here's what's going to happen. You're going to table this discussion while I have my legal team investigate. Anyone involved in obtaining or distributing those photos will be terminated and prosecuted. And in the future, if you have concerns about my conduct, you come to me directly instead of playing these games. She walked out, leaving the board in stunned silence. Ethan followed, struggling not to smile. In the elevator, Victoria's hands finally started shaking. That was incredible, Ethan said. That was a bluff. If they push, we're finished. They won't push. You scared them. Victoria leaned against the wall. I bought us time, maybe a week, but someone wants us gone badly enough to break the law. They'll try again. So we find out who and we stop them. How? I don't know yet. But we will. Ethan took her hand. You're not alone in this anymore. Remember that. Victoria squeezed his fingers and for just a moment let herself lean on him. The war had started, and neither of them was backing down. The investigation started that same afternoon. Victoria hired a private security firm that specialized in corporate espionage, the kind of people who could trace digital footprints through concrete. She also brought in Mitchell Gray, Sterling Global's head of legal, a man whose reputation for ruthlessness made sharks look cuddly. Mitchell sat across from Victoria's desk, reading through the email thread and studying the photos with the detached interest of a surgeon examining an X-ray. Whoever did this knew what they were doing, he said finally. The emails routed through 3 different proxy servers. The photos were downloaded from the hotel's security system using what looks like legitimate credentials, which means either they hacked the system or someone at the hotel gave them access. Can we trace it? Victoria asked. Eventually. But it'll take time, and they'll probably lawyer up the second we get close. Mitchell set down the photos. In the meantime, you've got a bigger problem. The board's spooked. Whitmore called me after the meeting. He's talking about mandatory ethics reviews, restructuring executive oversight, possibly forcing you to recuse yourself from decisions involving Hayes. Let them try. I'll tie them up in procedural challenges for months. You could, or you could make this easier on everyone and transfer Hayes to a different department. Remove the conflict of interest entirely. Victoria's expression went cold. No. Victoria, be reasonable. I said no. Ethan stays on my team. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me directly. Mitchell sighed. You're making this personal. It is personal. Someone's trying to destroy my career over a relationship between 2 consenting adults. I'm not rewarding that behavior by giving them what they want. And if they escalate, if this goes public, then it goes public. I'll deal with the consequences. Victoria stood, signaling the meeting was over. Find out who's behind this, Mitchell. I want names, evidence, everything, and I want it fast. After Mitchell left, Ethan emerged from the private bathroom where he'd been hiding during the legal consultation. Victoria had insisted he stay out of sight, maintain plausible deniability in case Mitchell was asked to testify later. He's right, you know, Ethan said. I could transfer. Make this simpler. You're not transferring. Victoria, we've had this conversation. You earned your position. I'm not letting anyone take that away from you. She rubbed her temples. Besides, transferring you now would look like an admission of guilt, like we did something wrong. Didn't we? We fell in love. That's not wrong. How we handled it might have been stupid, but it wasn't wrong. Victoria looked at him, and the vulnerability in her eyes made his chest ache. I won't apologize for choosing you. Ethan crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. She resisted for half a second, then melted against him, her face buried in his shoulder. I'm scared, she whispered. I've built this company from nothing. It's all I have. And now someone's trying to take it away because I finally let myself be happy. They won't take it. We won't let them. Victoria pulled back enough to look at him. You keep saying we like you're in this with me, like it's your fight too. It is my fight. You think I'm just going to stand back and watch them tear you apart? You might have to, if this gets ugly. It's already ugly, and I'm still here. Ethan kissed her forehead. I'm not going anywhere, Victoria. However bad this gets, whatever they throw at us, I'm staying right beside you. She kissed him then, desperate and grateful, and Ethan held her like she was the only solid thing in a world that had started crumbling beneath their feet. The crumbling accelerated over the next week. Anonymous emails started circulating through the company, vague insinuations about favoritism and inappropriate conduct. Nothing concrete enough to be actionable, but damaging enough to poison the atmosphere. People who'd been friendly to Ethan suddenly treated him like a disease. The executive team meetings became exercises in passive aggression, with Andrew Chen leading the charge. I'm just concerned about optics, Andrew said during a Tuesday morning strategy session, his tone dripping with false concern. How does it look to the rest of the company when someone jumps from junior analyst to executive team in a matter of months? What message does that send about advancement opportunities? It sends the message that merit matters, but, Victoria said icily, Hayes has outperformed every member of this team on every project I've assigned him. If you have a problem with that, bring me concrete evidence of incompetence. Otherwise, keep your concerns to yourself. Andrew smiled. Of course, I'm just looking out for the company's best interests. No, you're looking out for your own interests. There's a difference. The tension in the room could have cut glass. Ethan kept his mouth shut and focused on his notes, feeling everyone's eyes on him like searchlights. After the meeting, Patricia pulled him aside. Her expression was unreadable. There's something you should know, she said quietly. Andrew's been meeting with board members. Off the books, after hours. I don't know what they're discussing, but it's not good. How do you know this? I've worked here 15 years. I know everything that happens in this building. Patricia's voice dropped even lower. Watch your back, Mr. Hayes, and watch hers. Whatever they're planning, it's coming soon. She walked away before Ethan could respond, leaving him standing in the hallway with dread settling in his stomach like lead. He told Victoria that evening in her apartment instead of the office. They'd started meeting there regularly, the only place they could be together without eyes watching their every move. Victoria's apartment was everything Ethan had expected. Expensive, immaculate, and somehow lonely despite the luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park, but the place felt more like a hotel suite than a home. No photos, no personal touches, nothing that suggested anyone actually lived there. Patricia's right, Victoria said, pouring them both wine. Andrew's making his move. I can feel it. What can he actually do? You're the CEO. The company's performing well. The board can't just remove you without cause. They can if they manufacture cause. Corporate malfeasance, breach of fiduciary duty, conflicts of interest. There are a dozen ways to justify it if they want to badly enough. She took a long drink. Andrew's been angling for my job since he got here. He thinks he's entitled to it because of his pedigree and his connections. The fact that I chose you over him was the final insult. So this is about ego. Everything's about ego with men like Andrew. They can't stand the idea that someone they consider beneath them might actually be better. Victoria sat beside him on the couch. I've spent my whole career dealing with men like that. Men who assumed I slept my way to the top, who questioned every decision, who waited for me to fail so they could say they knew all along I wasn't good enough. You're more than good enough. You're brilliant. I'm tired, Ethan. I'm tired of fighting, tired of proving myself, tired of being alone in a room full of people. She leaned her head on his shoulder. And then you walked into my office that night and saw me at my worst and didn't run. You stayed. You keep staying, because you're worth staying for. Victoria turned to look at him. Am I? Really? Because most days I feel like a disaster barely holding it together. You're the strongest person I know. Strong people don't fall apart on their office floor at midnight. Yes, they do. That's what makes them strong. They fall apart and then they get back up. Ethan took her hand. You think I haven't fallen apart? You think there weren't nights after Maya's mom left when I locked myself in the bathroom and cried until I couldn't breathe? Strength isn't about never breaking. It's about breaking and still showing up the next day. Victoria's eyes went bright with unshed tears. How do you always know the right thing to say? I don't. I'm making this up as I go, same as you. She kissed him, and they stopped talking for a while. Later, lying in her bed with the city lights painting patterns on the ceiling, Victoria traced circles on his chest. Tell me something, she said. If this all falls apart, if we lose everything, would you still choose me? Yes. You didn't even hesitate. Because there's nothing to hesitate about. I'd choose you every time. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. I don't know if I deserve you. That's not how this works. It's not about deserving. It's just about choosing each other and figuring out the rest as we go. And if I make mistakes, if I mess this up, then we fix it together. That's what people do when they love each other. The word hung between them. Love. Neither of them had said it out loud before, had kept it carefully unspoken, like speaking it would make everything too real, too vulnerable. Victoria propped herself up on her elbow, looking down at him. Do you love me? Yeah, I do. Probably have for weeks now. I just didn't want to admit it. Why not? Because loving you is terrifying. Because you could destroy me if you wanted to. Because I've got Maya to think about. And if this goes wrong, it doesn't just hurt me. It hurts her too. And you're still here anyway. I'm still here anyway. Victoria's hand came up to cup his face. I love you too. I'm terrible at it. I'm going to screw it up constantly. But I do. I love you. Ethan pulled her down and kissed her. And it felt like crossing another line, making another promise they'd have to find a way to keep. The attack came Thursday morning. Ethan was at his desk when his phone rang. Rachel's number. He answered immediately because Rachel never called during work hours unless something was wrong. Ethan, Maya's school just called. Rachel's voice was tight with worry. They said someone tried to pick her up. A man claiming to be your brother. Ethan's blood turned to ice. I don't have a brother. I know. The school wouldn't release her, but they're spooked. They want you to come down there immediately. I'm on my way. Ethan was already grabbing his jacket. Call the police, file a report. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He made it to Victoria's office in under 30 seconds, not caring who saw. She was on a conference call, but took one look at his face and immediately ended it. What happened? Someone tried to take Maya from school, claimed to be my brother. The school stopped it, but his hands were shaking. This is connected. It has to be. First the photos, now this. Someone's threatening my daughter. Victoria's expression went from concern to murderous in seconds. Go right now. I'll handle things here. Victoria, your daughter is what matters. Go be with her. I'll call Mitchell, get police involved, whatever it takes. She grabbed his arm. Ethan, I swear to you, whoever did this will pay for it. The subway ride to Brooklyn was the longest 20 minutes of Ethan's life. His mind kept conjuring nightmare scenarios. Maya scared, Maya hurt, Maya taken. By the time he burst through the school doors, he was barely holding it together. Maya was in the principal's office with Rachel, clutching her stuffed giraffe. The second she saw Ethan, she launched herself at him, and he caught her, holding on like she might disappear if he let go. Daddy, there was a scary man, she said into his shoulder. I know, baby, I know, but you're safe now. I've got you. The principal, a tired-looking woman named Mrs. Rodriguez, explained what happened. A man in his 40s, well-dressed, had shown up at dismissal claiming to be Ethan's brother James, saying there was a family emergency. He'd known Maya's name, her grade, even her teacher. But school policy required ID verification, and when Mrs. Rodriguez asked for identification, the man got agitated and left. Did you get a look at him? Description? Security footage? Ethan asked. We have footage. The police are on their way to collect it. But I have to tell you, Mr. Hayes, this was sophisticated. Whoever this was, they did their homework. They knew enough details about your family to almost be convincing. Ethan's stomach churned. This wasn't random. This wasn't opportunistic. Someone had researched him, learned about Maya, and tried to use her to get to him. The police arrived, took statements, collected the security footage. A detective named Martinez gave Ethan his card and promised to follow up. But Ethan could see it in his eyes. Without more to go on, this would go nowhere. Rachel drove them back to her apartment. Maya had finally calmed down, distracted by Biscuit, but Ethan couldn't shake the terror that had settled into his bones. This is because of her, isn't it? Rachel said quietly while Maya played with the puppy in the living room. Because of Victoria Sterling and whatever's happening at your company. I don't know, maybe. Ethan, someone tried to kidnap your daughter. This isn't corporate politics anymore. This is dangerous. You think I don't know that? His voice came out harsher than intended. You think I'm not terrified right now? Rachel's expression softened. I know you are. But you need to think about what's best for Maya. If being with Victoria puts her in danger, I'm not leaving Victoria. And this isn't her fault. I'm not saying it's her fault. I'm saying maybe the people trying to hurt her are willing to hurt you and Maya to do it, and you need to decide if whatever you have with her is worth that risk. Ethan wanted to argue, wanted to defend his choices, but looking at Maya playing innocently on the floor, still shaken from what happened, he couldn't find the words. His phone buzzed. Victoria. He answered in the kitchen, out of Maya's earshot. How is she? Victoria asked immediately. Scared, but okay. The police have footage, but no real leads. Mitchell's looking into it from our end. We're trying to trace connections between the photo situation and this, see if it's the same people. It has to be. This is too coordinated to be random. Victoria was quiet for a moment. Ethan, I think you should take Maya somewhere safe. Out of the city for a few days. Just until we figure out who's behind this. I'm not running. It's not running. It's protecting your daughter. If something happened to her because of me, nothing's going to happen to her. I'll make sure of it. How? We don't even know who we're fighting. Then we figure it out. Together. Ethan lowered his voice. I'm not leaving you to deal with this alone, Victoria. We're in this together. Remember? I remember. I just don't want Maya caught in the crossfire. She won't be, I promise. It was a promise he had no idea how to keep. That night, after Maya finally fell asleep, Ethan sat on Rachel's couch with a beer and tried to make sense of everything. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Just a photo, no message. The photo showed Maya's school, taken from across the street, time-stamped earlier that day. Ethan's hands went numb. He called Victoria immediately. They sent me a picture of Maya's school. They're letting me know they can get to her whenever they want. Victoria swore viciously. Forward it to me. I'm calling the police, private security, everyone. We're not letting them get near her again. This is escalating. Whoever's doing this, they're not going to stop. No, they're not. Which means we need to find them before they do something worse. Victoria's voice was steel. I'm coming over. It's 11 at night. I don't care. I need to see you. Need to see that you're both okay. She arrived 40 minutes later, still in her work clothes, looking exhausted and furious. Rachel let her in with a disapproving look but said nothing. Victoria went straight to Ethan, wrapped her arms around him and held on. I'm so sorry, she whispered. This is my fault. All of it. Stop. We don't know that. Who else would it be? Someone's trying to force me out by threatening the people I care about. She pulled back to look at him. I should end this. Let you go, transfer you somewhere safe, get you and Maya away from this mess. Is that what you want? No. But what I want doesn't matter if it puts you in danger. It matters to me. Ethan took her face in his hands. I'm not going anywhere. You're not getting rid of me that easily. You're insane. You keep saying that. Victoria almost smiled. Then her phone rang. Mitchell's name on the screen. She answered on speaker. We found something, Mitchell said without preamble. The hotel security footage? It was accessed using credentials belonging to Gregory Vance. Ethan's blood went cold. Gregory Vance was a board member. Old money, old connections, and one of Victoria's most vocal critics. Vance personally downloaded those files, Victoria asked. His credentials were used. Whether he did it himself or someone borrowed them is unclear, but there's more. Vance's executive assistant is Andrew Chen's cousin, and phone records show multiple calls between them over the past month. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Andrew had been working with Vance from the beginning, using a board member's access to gather dirt and orchestrate the whole campaign. Can we prove conspiracy? Victoria asked. Working on it. But between the credential usage and the phone records, we've got enough to at least confront them. Good. Set up a meeting, first thing tomorrow. And Mitchell? I want both of them in the room. Time to end this. She hung up and looked at Ethan. It's Andrew. It's been Andrew all along. And he went after Maya to scare me into backing down. Probably. He's vindictive enough. Victoria's expression went hard. But he made a mistake. He went after a 6-year-old girl. That's not just unethical. It's criminal. What are we going to do? We're going to destroy him. Legally, professionally, completely. And then we're going to make sure he never works in this city again. The meeting Friday morning was a bloodbath. Mitchell had assembled evidence overnight: phone records, email trails, security footage timestamps. Gregory Vance sat at the conference table looking uncomfortable. Andrew Chen sat beside him looking defiant. Victoria didn't waste time with pleasantries. Gregory, your network credentials were used to access confidential security footage from the Palmer Hotel in Chicago. That footage was then used to blackmail me and Mr. Hayes. Care to explain how that happened? Vance shifted in his seat. My credentials were stolen. I reported it to IT weeks ago. Funny. IT has no record of that report. Then they made a mistake. Or you're lying. Victoria turned to Andrew. Your cousin works as Vance's assistant. Phone records show 47 calls between you two in the past month. What were you discussing? Andrew's jaw tightened. Personal matters. We're family. Personal matters that coincidentally aligned with a coordinated campaign to force my resignation? Victoria slid a folder across the table. We also have emails. You were sloppy, Andrew. Used your personal account to communicate with a private investigator about following me and Hayes. Want to explain that? For the first time, Andrew's confidence cracked. You hacked my email. That's illegal. Actually, our IT department flagged suspicious activity on company networks and traced it back to you. You used company computers to coordinate your little conspiracy. That makes it fair game. Victoria leaned forward. You went after a child, Andrew. A 6-year-old girl. You tried to have her taken from school to terrorize her father into quitting. That's not corporate hardball. That's felony attempted kidnapping. I don't know anything about that. Your private investigator friend does. He's already talking to police, by the way. Seems he's not interested in going down for your vendetta. The blood drained from Andrew's face. Vance had gone completely silent, clearly calculating his exit strategy. Here's what's going to happen, Victoria said. Andrew, you're going to resign immediately. You'll sign a statement admitting to corporate espionage and attempting to coerce resignations through blackmail. In exchange, I won't press criminal charges for the attempted kidnapping, though the police will still pursue it independently. Gregory, you're going to step down from the board, quietly, citing health reasons or whatever face-saving excuse you prefer, and both of you are going to disappear from my company and my life permanently. You can't force me to resign, Andrew blustered. I have a contract. You breached that contract the moment you used company resources for personal vendettas. Mitchell has the documentation. You can resign now with a severance package and a neutral reference, or you can fight this and I'll make sure every firm in the city knows exactly what you did. Your choice. Andrew stared at her, hatred burning in his eyes. But he was beaten and he knew it. Fine, I'll resign. Good. Gregory? Vance nodded stiffly. I'll submit my resignation to the board this afternoon. Excellent. Get out of my building. They left like whipped dogs. The second the door closed, Victoria's shoulders sagged. Ethan, who'd been standing quietly in the corner throughout the whole exchange, moved to her side. You okay? he asked. No, but I will be. She looked up at him. Is Maya safe now? The PI's in custody. Mitchell's filing restraining orders against Andrew and Vance. Between that and the police investigation, yeah, she should be safe. Victoria nodded. Then suddenly, she started laughing. Not happy laughter, exhausted, slightly hysterical laughter that came from too much stress and too little sleep. We actually did it, she said. We survived the corporate assassination attempt. You did it. That was all you in there. No, I couldn't have done this without you, without knowing you were beside me through all of it. She took his hand. Thank you. For staying, for not running when things got dangerous. I told you, I'm not going anywhere. I know, and I love you for it. They stood there, hands linked, in the conference room where Victoria had just demolished her enemies. Outside the windows, Manhattan glittered in the morning sun. Everything felt fragile and new, like they'd survived a storm and were seeing the world for the first time. Mitchell appeared in the doorway. The board wants to meet. They're concerned about the optics of all this. Victoria sighed. Of course they are. Tell them I'll be there in 10 minutes. After Mitchell left, she turned to Ethan. This isn't over. The board's going to want blood. They'll want assurances that nothing like this will happen again. What are you going to tell them? The truth. That Andrew orchestrated a conspiracy to remove me. That Vance was complicit. That neither of them will ever work in this industry again. She paused, and that you and I are together, and they can either accept it or fire me. But I'm done apologizing for being human. That's a risk. Everything worth having is a risk. Victoria smiled. Besides, I've got a good lawyer and enough dirt on half the board to make things very uncomfortable if they push me out. I think I'll survive. What about us? Do we survive? Victoria pulled him close, kissed him softly. Yeah, we survive. Together. The board meeting was tense, but ultimately anticlimactic. Victoria presented the evidence against Andrew and Vance, explained the security measures being implemented, and formally disclosed her relationship with Ethan. Douglas Whitmore grumbled about ethics and optics, but with Vance gone and the company's numbers still strong, he didn't have much ammunition. They voted to accept the resignations and move on. No sanctions against Victoria. No forced transfers for Ethan. Just a formal reminder to maintain professional conduct and update the relationship disclosure policy. It was, all things considered, a victory. That evening, Ethan picked up Maya from Rachel's apartment. His sister met him at the door with crossed arms and a stern expression. Is it over? She asked. Yeah, the guy's in custody, the people who hired him are gone, and we've got security measures in place. Rachel studied him. And you're staying with her? I am. Even after everything that happened. Especially after everything that happened. Ethan met his sister's eyes. I love her, Rachel, and she loves me. I'm not walking away from that. Rachel sighed. You're stubborn as hell, you know that? Learned from the best. She smiled despite herself. Fine, but if she hurts you, I'm taking her down personally. Deal. Maya bounded out, already chattering about her day. The attempted kidnapping already fading into the background noise of childhood. Kids were resilient that way. Ethan held her hand as they walked to the subway, feeling the weight of everything that had happened and everything that still might go wrong. But Victoria was right. Everything worth having was a risk. And this, Maya, Victoria, the life they were building together, was worth every risk in the world. His phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. Dinner tomorrow? My place? Want you to meet someone. Who? He typed back. My therapist recommended I try connecting with people outside of work. So I joined a grief support group, made an actual friend, thought maybe we could do a double date thing. Ethan smiled. Victoria, making friends, going to therapy, opening her life to more than just work. It was progress, real progress. Sounds perfect, he replied. They'd survived the worst, now maybe they could figure out how to actually live. The double date happened on a Saturday night, which gave Ethan time to overthink everything. He stood in front of his closet, the tiny closet in the new apartment Victoria had helped him find, the one that allowed dogs, and tried to figure out what you wore to meet your girlfriend's new friend from grief counseling. The blue shirt, Maya announced from where she sat on his bed, biscuit sprawled across her lap. You look nice in blue. How do you know what looks nice? Because Aunt Rachel says so. And she knows everything about clothes. Ethan pulled out the blue shirt. His daughter was right. Rachel did know everything about clothes. He was halfway through buttoning it when his phone rang. Rachel's number. I was just thinking about you, he said. That's because I'm psychic. Also because you're about to meet Victoria's friend, and you're probably having a minor crisis about it. I'm not having a crisis. You're absolutely having a crisis. What are you wearing? The blue shirt. Good. Now listen, this is important. This friend of hers, this is huge. Victoria doesn't make friends. She makes professional contacts and enemies. The fact that she's introducing you to someone she actually chose to spend time with means she's serious about building a real life. Don't screw this up. You're not helping with the crisis I'm not having. Rachel laughed. You'll be fine. Just be yourself. That's what she loves about you anyway. You don't bullshit her. After they hung up, Ethan finished getting dressed and kissed Maya goodbye. She was staying with Rachel for the night, which was good because Ethan had no idea how late this would go or how well it would go. Victoria's apartment looked different when he arrived. She'd bought flowers. Actual fresh flowers in a vase on the kitchen counter. There were candles on the dining table. She'd even framed a photo, a candid shot someone had taken at the office charity gala last month, of her and Ethan laughing at something. You redecorated, Ethan said, looking around. Victoria followed his gaze, looking almost embarrassed. My therapist said I should make this place feel less like a hotel room, something about creating a space that reflects connection instead of isolation. She shrugged. I'm trying. It looks good, feels warmer. Yeah, well, don't get used to it. I'm still terrible at the whole domestic thing. Victoria smoothed down her dress, casual, not the power suits she wore to work. Sarah's going to be here any minute. Fair warning, she's going to ask you a lot of questions. She's protective. Sarah from the support group? Yeah. Lost her husband 2 years ago in a car accident, left her with twin boys and a mortgage she could barely afford. She's a public school teacher in the Bronx, so we have absolutely nothing in common on paper, but somehow we clicked. Before Ethan could respond, the doorbell rang. Victoria took a visible breath, like she was steadying herself, and went to answer it. Sarah turned out to be everything Victoria wasn't, warm, loud, immediately comfortable in her own skin. She walked in with a bottle of wine and a huge smile, pulling Victoria into a hug that made Victoria stiffen before awkwardly patting her back. So you're the famous Ethan, Sarah said, turning to him. The man who got our Ice Queen here to actually feel feelings. I don't call her Ice Queen to her face, Ethan said. Sarah laughed, loud and genuine. Oh, I like him already. Vic, you did good. Victoria rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. Don't encourage him. His ego's already big enough. They settled into dinner, and Ethan watched Victoria navigate this friendship with the same careful attention she brought to everything else. She listened when Sarah talked about her boy's latest school drama, asked questions about Sarah's mother, who was sick, told stories about work that were actually funny instead of just strategic. I've never seen her like this, Sarah said during dessert, addressing Ethan directly. In group, she was always so closed off. Angry at the world, angry at herself. Then, about 2 months ago, she started talking about this guy at work, how he'd walked in on her having the worst night of her life, and didn't judge her for it. I knew then something had shifted. Victoria's cheeks actually colored. Sarah, what? It's true. You were a mess when you started group. We all were, but you were special. You were so convinced you didn't deserve anything good that you'd built this whole fortress around yourself. Then Ethan here showed up, and apparently the fortress started developing cracks. The fortress is still pretty solid, Victoria muttered, but it's got doors now. That's progress. Sarah turned to Ethan. You got kids? A daughter, Maya. She's 6. How's she handling all this? Her dad dating his boss? The drama at work? All of it? Ethan appreciated that Sarah didn't dance around it. She likes Victoria, especially after Victoria showed up with a puppy. As for the rest, I've tried to shield her from the worst of it. The attempted kidnapping must have been terrifying. Victoria's hand found Ethan's under the table. He squeezed it. It was, he admitted. Still gives me nightmares. But the guy's in custody, and we've got security measures in place now. I check in with her school 3 times a day. Maybe I'm being paranoid, but you're being a good father, Sarah interrupted. Paranoid is what keeps kids safe. She looked at Victoria. You met her yet? The daughter? A few times, briefly. And? Victoria shifted uncomfortably. She's great. Smart, funny, kind. Everything you'd want a kid to be. But I don't know how to be around kids. I freeze up. I'm terrified I'm going to say the wrong thing or do something that traumatizes her. Ethan makes it look easy, but I have no idea what I'm doing. Sarah's expression softened. Nobody knows what they're doing. I've had my boys for 8 years, and I still feel like I'm faking it half the time. Kids don't need perfect. They need present. Just show up and care about them, and they'll figure out the rest. What if I screw it up? Then you apologize and try again. That's what parenting is. One long series of screwing up and trying again. Sarah took a sip of wine. You want my advice? Stop overthinking it. Kids can smell fear. Just be honest with her. Treat her like a person, not a fragile thing you might break. Victoria nodded slowly, taking this in. Ethan could see her filing it away, analyzing it the way she analyzed everything else. After dinner, Sarah headed home to relieve her babysitter. She hugged Victoria goodbye at the door, whispered something in her ear that made Victoria's eyes go bright, then pulled Ethan into a hug too. You're good for her, Sarah said quietly. Don't let her push you away when she gets scared. She will, because that's what she does. But don't let her. I won't. After Sarah left, Victoria leaned against the closed door and let out a long breath. That went better than I expected, she said. You were great. Natural. I was terrified the entire time. Couldn't tell. Ethan pulled her close. I'm proud of you. Making friends, going to therapy, letting people in. That's huge. Victoria buried her face in his shoulder. My therapist says I use work as a shield against dealing with my grief, that I built this empire so I'd never have to sit still long enough to feel anything. She's probably right. After I lost the babies, after my husband left, I just threw myself into the company, worked 18-hour days, built something so big and demanding that I didn't have room for anything else. And now? Now I'm trying to figure out how to have both. How to run a company and have a life. How to be successful and happy instead of just successful. She pulled back to look at him. It's harder than I thought it would be. I keep defaulting to work mode, treating everything like a problem to solve instead of just living. You're learning. That's what matters. Am I though? Because sometimes I feel like I'm just going through the motions, saying the right things in therapy, making friends because I'm supposed to, pretending I know how to do this when really I'm completely lost. Ethan cupped her face in his hands. You're not pretending, you're trying. There's a difference. And yeah, you're going to stumble, but you're showing up. That counts for something. Victoria kissed him, slow and deep. How did I get so lucky to find you? I walked past your office at the wrong time. The right time, definitely the right time. They ended up on the couch, tangled together, talking until midnight about everything and nothing. Victoria told him about her childhood, about parents who'd expected perfection and got a daughter who couldn't settle for anything less. Ethan told her about his own parents, both gone now, who'd worked themselves into early graves trying to give him opportunities they never had. I think that's why I work so hard, Ethan said. I watched my dad kill himself with overtime at the factory, watched my mom take double shifts at the hospital. They died before they were 60, both of them, and never got to enjoy any of it. I swore I wouldn't end up like that. But then Maya came along and suddenly I understood. They did it for me. All of it was for me. And now you're doing it for her. Yeah, but I'm trying to find balance, actually be present instead of just providing. That's why what Sarah said tonight hit home. Kids need present, not perfect. Victoria was quiet for a moment. Do you think Maya would want me around, like actually in her life, not just peripherally? Are you kidding? She asks about you constantly. When's Victoria coming over? Why can't Victoria come to the park? Does Victoria like ice cream? Really? Really? You made an impression with that puppy. Plus she thinks you're beautiful, which, fair. Victoria's smile was small but genuine. I'd like to spend more time with her. if that's okay. Maybe start slow, build up to the scary stuff. There's no scary stuff. She's 6. She likes coloring and cartoons and biscuit. Just hang out with her, see what happens. Okay, I can do that. Victoria paused. What if she asks about the future? About us? What about us? Like whether we're serious, whether I'm going to stick around. Ethan pulled her closer. Are you going to stick around? Yeah, I mean, if you want me to. Victoria, I love you. Of course I want you to stick around. Even though I'm a mess, even though I work too much and I'm terrible at feelings and I'll probably screw this up at least a dozen times, even though all of that, you're my mess. I signed up for this. Victoria laughed, the sound slightly watery. You're insane. You keep saying that like it's going to change something. It won't, will it? Nope. They stayed like that until Victoria fell asleep on his chest, exhausted from socializing and vulnerability. Ethan watched her sleep, this powerful woman who'd conquered corporate America but was terrified of a 6-year-old's opinion. He loved her for that. Loved that she cared enough to be scared. The next few weeks settled into a new rhythm. Work was calmer without Andrew's constant undermining. The board had backed off, apparently satisfied that the relationship was disclosed and not affecting company performance. Victoria started leaving the office at reasonable hours sometimes, joining Ethan for dinner at his place or hers, and slowly, carefully, she started integrating into Maya's life. It started small. Victoria would stop by on Saturday mornings with bagels. She'd sit on the floor and play board games, even though she was terrible at them and hated losing. She'd listen to Maya's rambling stories about school with genuine interest, asking questions that showed she was actually paying attention. Maya, for her part, fell for Victoria completely. She started drawing pictures for Victoria's office, asked if Victoria could come to her school play, declared that Victoria was her second best grown-up right after Daddy. What about me? Rachel had asked, mock offended. You're third, Maya said seriously. But that's still really good. Rachel had laughed, but later she'd pulled Ethan aside. She's good with her, better than I expected. Victoria or Maya? Both. I thought Victoria would be too stiff, too uncomfortable, but she actually tries. She's not a natural, but she cares, and that matters. One Saturday afternoon, Victoria showed up at the apartment looking nervous in jeans and a sweater, her casual uniform now. I have an idea, she said. If you hate it, just say so. But there's this thing at the Museum of Natural History, a kids' science workshop. I thought maybe Maya might like it. Maya, who'd been coloring at the kitchen table, looked up with wide eyes. Can we go, Daddy? Please? Ethan looked at Victoria's hopeful expression and felt his heart crack open a little more. Yeah, we can go. The museum was crowded with families, loud with the chaos of excited children. Victoria held Maya's hand as they navigated through the exhibits, pointing out dinosaurs and explaining geological formations in terms a 6-year-old could understand. She was surprisingly good at it, Ethan realized. When she forgot to be nervous, she was patient and engaging. The science workshop was about volcanoes. Kids got to build miniature versions and make them erupt with baking soda and vinegar. Maya threw herself into it with enthusiasm, getting the mixture all over herself and half of Victoria's sweater. Victoria didn't even flinch, just laughed and helped her add more vinegar. This is the best day ever, Maya announced, watching her volcano foam over. Victoria's smile was bright and unguarded. Yeah? Yeah, you're really good at science stuff. Are you a scientist? No, I run a business, but I liked science when I was your age. Were you smart like me? Victoria laughed. Probably not as smart as you. You're pretty brilliant. On the subway ride home, Maya fell asleep against Victoria's side, exhausted from excitement. Victoria looked down at her, then at Ethan, and her expression was something close to wonder. I could do this, she said quietly. This whole family thing, I think I could actually do it. You are doing it. No, I mean, really do it. Not just visits and museums, the everyday stuff, homework and bedtime stories and all of it. She paused. If you wanted that, if that's something you'd even consider. Ethan's heart was hammering. Are you asking what I think you're asking? I'm asking if there's room in your life for me, permanently. Not just as your girlfriend who stops by sometimes, as someone who's actually part of this family. Victoria, you don't have to answer now. I know it's fast. I know we should probably wait, but I've spent my whole life being careful and planning everything perfectly, and it never worked. Maybe it's time to just jump and see what happens. Maya stirred, mumbled something about volcanoes, and settled back into sleep. Ethan looked at this woman who'd walked into his life crying on an office floor and somehow become essential, who'd fought beside him through corporate warfare, who was terrified of screwing up but trying anyway. There's room, he said quietly. There's always been room. I've just been waiting for you to be ready to take it. Victoria's eyes went bright. Yeah? Yeah. She kissed him over Maya's sleeping head, soft and full of promise. And Ethan felt something shift, like pieces of his life finally clicking into place. But the universe, as it turned out, wasn't done testing them yet. The call came on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after the museum trip. Ethan was in a meeting when his phone buzzed with an unknown number. He ignored it. It buzzed again. Then again. He excused himself and stepped into the hallway. Mr. Hayes? An unfamiliar woman's voice. This is Linda Chen from Child Protective Services. We need to speak with you about your daughter, Maya Hayes. Ethan's blood turned to ice. What about her? Is she okay? She's fine physically, but we've received a report alleging neglect and inappropriate living conditions. I need you to come to our office this afternoon to discuss this matter. Neglect? What are you talking about? My daughter is perfectly cared for. I understand this is concerning, Mr. Hayes. But we're required to investigate all reports. Can you be here at 2 o'clock? Ethan barely remembered agreeing, barely remembered ending the call. He stood in the hallway, phone clutched in his shaking hand, trying to process what had just happened. Victoria found him there 5 minutes later. Ethan, what's wrong? CPS, someone reported me for neglect. What? They want me to come in this afternoon. Someone told them Maya's living in inappropriate conditions, that I'm neglecting her. His voice was rising. This is bullshit. This is complete bullshit. Victoria's expression went from shocked to furious. This is Andrew. It has to be. One last attack before he disappears. Andrew's gone. The restraining order doesn't stop him from making an anonymous call, doesn't stop him from lying to CPS about your daughter's living situation. Victoria grabbed her phone. I'm calling Mitchell. We're getting ahead of this. The CPS meeting was a nightmare. Linda Chen was professional but skeptical, going through a list of allegations that made Ethan's skin crawl. Maya was frequently left alone. The apartment was filthy. She'd been seen with bruises. Ethan worked excessive hours and left her with relatives who were unfit guardians. Every word was a lie. Every accusation designed to wound. None of this is true, Ethan said, struggling to keep his voice level. My daughter is never alone. My sister watches her when I'm at work, and she's a licensed nurse. Our apartment is clean. Maya's never had an unexplained bruise in her life. We'll need to conduct a home visit to verify these claims, Linda said. We'll also need to interview your daughter, your sister, and anyone else who regularly cares for Maya. Fine. Interview whoever you want. You'll see this is fabricated. Mr. Hayes, I understand you're upset, but these allegations are serious. Until we complete our investigation, I'm required to check in regularly. We'll also be speaking with Maya's school, her pediatrician, and any other relevant parties. Mitchell, who'd accompanied Ethan to the meeting, leaned forward. My client is happy to cooperate fully. However, we'd like to know the source of these allegations. If they're false, and we believe they are, that constitutes filing a false report, which is a crime. Linda's expression didn't change. Reports to CPS are confidential. I can't disclose the source. Even if the source is someone with a documented history of harassment against my client, someone currently under investigation for attempted kidnapping, I can't comment on that. They left the CPS office with a scheduled home visit for Friday and a laundry list of documentation to provide. Ethan felt sick. This was worse than the blackmail photos, worse than the attempted kidnapping. This attacked his fundamental identity as a father. Victoria drove him back to the office in silence. When they parked in the garage, she turned to him. "We're going to fight this," she said fiercely. "We're going to prove it's false, and we're going to make Andrew pay for it." "How? CPS won't tell us who filed the report, and even if we prove it was Andrew, the damage is done. There's a file on me now, a record that someone thought my daughter wasn't safe with me. Then we'll get it expunged. We'll document everything, your apartment, Maya's care, your work schedule. We'll show them this is retaliation, not legitimate concern." Ethan leaned his head back against the seat. "I'm so tired, Victoria, tired of fighting, tired of defending myself, tired of worrying that every good thing in my life is going to get weaponized against me." "I know, but you can't give up. Maya needs you to fight this." "What if I can't? What if this is finally too much?" Victoria grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. "Listen to me. You are the best father I've ever seen. You've built a beautiful life for that little girl against impossible odds. Some vindictive asshole filing a false report doesn't change that. It doesn't make you less of a parent. It just makes him more of a coward." "You sound very sure." "I am sure. I've watched you with her, Ethan. I've seen how she looks at you, how safe she feels with you. That's not something you can fake. That's real. And no investigation is going to change what's real." Ethan pulled her close, buried his face in her shoulder. "I'm scared." "I know, but you're not alone in this. I'm here. Mitchell's here. We're going to get through it together." The home visit Friday was humiliating. Linda Chen went through every room in the apartment, taking notes, photographing everything. She checked the fridge, the cabinets, Maya's bedroom, asked questions about schedules and childcare and emergency protocols. Maya, sensing something was wrong, clung to Ethan throughout the whole thing. She was quieter than usual, watching the strange woman with wide, worried eyes. After Linda left, Maya climbed into Ethan's lap. "Daddy, are we in trouble?" "No, baby. Someone just told a lie about us, and that lady needs to check to make sure we're okay." "Are we okay?" Ethan hugged her tight. "We're perfect." But that night, after Maya was asleep, Ethan stood in her doorway watching her breathe and felt the weight of everything threatening to crush him. He'd survived poverty, abandonment, corporate warfare, but this felt different. This felt personal in a way nothing else had. His phone buzzed. "Victoria. You awake?" "Yeah," he typed back. "Come over, please. I need to see you." He almost said no. It was late. He was exhausted. He couldn't leave Maya. But something in that please got to him. Victoria didn't ask for things, didn't admit to needing. He called Rachel, who showed up 20 minutes later in her pajamas and a coat. "Go. I've got her." Victoria answered her door in sweatpants and an old t-shirt, no makeup, hair in a messy bun. Her eyes were red. "Have you been crying?" Ethan asked. "Maybe. A little. Come in." Her apartment was different again. More photos now. One of her and Sarah from group, one of the three of them at the museum, one of just Victoria and Maya making volcanoes. The place looked lived in, loved. "I've been thinking," Victoria said, pacing, "about everything that's happened. The blackmail, the attempted kidnapping, now this CPS thing. It's all my fault." "Victoria, let me finish. If you'd never gotten involved with me, none of this would have happened. You'd still be a junior analyst, flying under the radar, living a quiet life with Maya. But I dragged you into my world, made you a target, and now your daughter's caught in the crossfire. That's not, so I think you should leave me." The words came out fast, like she'd been rehearsing them. "For Maya's sake. For your sake. Just walk away before I destroy everything else you care about." Ethan stared at her. "Are you serious right now?" "Completely. This is the smart move, the safe move." "The coward's move." Victoria flinched. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. This is you getting scared and trying to push me away before I can hurt you, just like Sarah warned me you would. This isn't about me being scared. Bullshit. This is exactly about you being scared. You finally let yourself care about someone, let yourself build something real, and now the first time things get hard, you're trying to sabotage it. I'm trying to protect you." "I don't need protecting. I need you to stand beside me and fight instead of running away. The second things get complicated." Victoria's face crumpled. "I don't know how to do this, Ethan. I don't know how to be the person you need. Every time I try, I screw it up. Every time I think I've figured it out, something else goes wrong. That's life. It goes wrong. You don't bail the first time it gets hard. But what if I can't fix this? What if CPS decides Maya's better off somewhere else because of me? They won't, because it's a false report from a vindictive asshole, and we're going to prove that. But I can't do it alone. I need you with me, not running away because you're scared of failing. Victoria wiped her eyes roughly. What if I fail anyway? What if loving you isn't enough to keep everything from falling apart? Ethan pulled her into his arms. Then we fall apart together and figure out how to put the pieces back. But you don't get to make that decision for me. You don't get to push me away to protect me from yourself. I'm a grown man. I choose you. Every day I choose you. Even when it's hard, even when it's scary, I choose you. Victoria sobbed against his chest, months of fear and grief pouring out. Ethan held her through it, stroking her hair, whispering that it was okay, that she was okay, that they were okay. Eventually, the tears stopped. Victoria pulled back, face blotchy and eyes swollen. I look terrible, she said. You look human. I like it. She laughed wetly. You're weird. You love me anyway. Yeah, I really do. Victoria took a shaky breath. Okay, I'm not running. We fight this together. Together. But, Ethan, I'm going to screw up again. Probably soon. I'm going to get scared or overwhelmed and try to push you away. When that happens, I'll push back. Every time. I promise. Victoria nodded. Then she did something she'd never done before. She pulled out her phone and called Sarah, right there in front of him. Hey, she said when Sarah answered. I know it's late, but I need to talk. I'm freaking out about the CPS thing, and I almost did something really stupid, and I need someone to tell me I'm not completely losing it. Ethan couldn't hear Sarah's response, but whatever she said made Victoria's shoulders relax slightly. Yeah, he's here. He stopped me from self-destructing. About support is. A pause. Okay, yeah, I'll try that. Thanks, Sarah. She hung up and looked at Ethan. Sarah says I need to stop catastrophizing and start trusting that the people who love me actually mean it when they say they're not leaving. Sarah's smart. She really is. Victoria took his hand. Stay tonight? I don't want to be alone. Rachel's with Maya. I can stay. They ended up in Victoria's bed, wrapped around each other, talking until dawn about everything they were afraid of and everything they hoped for. And when the sun came up, they faced it together, ready for whatever came next. The break in the CPS case came from an unexpected source. Maya's teacher, Mrs. Patterson, called Ethan on a Monday morning with information that changed everything. Mr. Hayes, I need to tell you something, she said, voice tight with anger. A man came to the school 3 weeks ago asking questions about Maya, said he was conducting a family wellness check. I thought it was legitimate at the time, but after CPS showed up, I got suspicious. I pulled the sign-in logs. The signature doesn't match any official agency. Ethan's pulse quickened. Do you remember what he looked like? 40-something, expensive suit, very polished. He had a badge, but now that I think about it, I never actually verified it. I'm so sorry, Mr. Hayes. I should have been more careful. It's not your fault. Can you describe him to the police? Already did. Detective Martinez came by this morning. I gave him everything. The sign-in sheet, security footage, my statement. He seemed very interested. After hanging up, Ethan immediately called Mitchell, who was already 2 steps ahead. The security firm Victoria had hired had been tracking Andrew Chen's movements since the restraining order. Turned out Andrew had hired the same private investigator who'd attempted to take Maya from school, and that PI had posed as a CPS investigator to gather false information for the report. We've got him, Mitchell said, satisfaction clear in his voice. The PI's rolling over completely. Says Andrew paid him $15,000 to dig up dirt on you and Victoria, and when he couldn't find anything real, Andrew told him to fabricate it. We've got bank records, text messages, everything. Can we get the CPS case dismissed? Already working on it. I'm meeting with their legal department this afternoon with all the evidence. This was clearly a malicious false report. They'll close the investigation. Victoria was in her office when Ethan arrived to tell her the news. She looked up from her laptop, saw his face, and immediately stood. What happened? We got him. Andrew, Mitchell has proof he fabricated the whole CPS report. Victoria's expression cycled through shock, relief, and then pure rage. That son of a bitch! He went after a 6-year-old child to get revenge on us. He's done now. Mitchell says he's looking at criminal charges, filing false reports, conspiracy, possibly more depending on what else they find. Good. I want him buried so deep he never sees daylight again. Victoria came around the desk and pulled Ethan into a tight hug. Is it really over? Can we finally stop waiting for the next attack? I think so, yeah. She held him for a long moment, and Ethan could feel the tension draining from her body. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were bright. I have something I want to ask you, she said. I've been thinking about it for weeks, but the timing never felt right. Maybe there's never a right time for something like this. Like what? Victoria took a breath, visibly steadying herself. Move in with me. You and Maya. I know my apartment isn't exactly kid-friendly, but we could change that. Convert the study into her bedroom, get rid of some of the pretentious art, make it actually feel like a home instead of a museum. Ethan stared at her. You want us to move in? I want a family, your family, our family. The words came faster now, like she was afraid if she stopped, she'd lose her nerve. I know it's fast. I know people will talk, but I'm tired of living in 2 separate worlds. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to help Maya with her homework and argue about what to watch on TV and do all the mundane, ordinary things that make a life. Victoria, you don't have to answer right now. Think about it. Talk to Maya. Make sure it's what you both want. But I needed you to know that I'm all in, completely. No more hesitation, no more holding back. I love you. And I love your daughter. And I want to build something real with both of you. Ethan cupped her face in his hands. You're sure about this? Because once we take that step, there's no going back to how things were. I don't want to go back. I want to go forward with you. Then yes, we'll move in. Maya's going to lose her mind when I tell her. Victoria's smile was radiant. Yeah? Yeah, she's been asking when you're going to live with us for weeks now. Rachel told her to stop bothering me about it. I love that kid so much it terrifies me sometimes. She loves you too. You know that, right? She drew you a picture last week that said, My Victoria, with hearts all over it. It's on Rachel's fridge. Victoria's eyes went bright with tears. My Victoria, I like that. So do I. They kissed, and Ethan felt something settle deep in his chest. This was right. Messy and complicated and absolutely right. The CPS case was officially closed 3 days later. Linda Chen called to inform Ethan that after reviewing the evidence of fabrication and speaking with Maya's teacher, pediatrician, and other references, they were satisfied the report was malicious and unfounded. The file would be expunged from their records. I apologize for the distress this caused your family, Linda said. We have to investigate every report, but it's clear in hindsight that this was retaliation, not genuine concern. What happens to the person who filed the false report? That's being referred to the district attorney's office. Filing a false report is a crime. They'll handle it from here. After hanging up, Ethan called Maya's school to give them the update, then called Rachel. Thank God, Rachel said. I've been worried sick. How's Maya handling everything? She doesn't really understand what happened. I told her some adults made a mistake, but it's fixed now. And how are you handling it? Better, especially since I have some news. Ethan took a breath. Victoria asked us to move in with her, and I said yes. Rachel was quiet for a long moment. You're sure about this? I'm sure. I love her, Rachel, and she loves Maya. This isn't some impulsive thing. We've talked about it, thought it through. It feels right. Then I'm happy for you. Rachel's voice softened. You deserve this, Ethan. You've been alone for so long, taking care of everyone but yourself. It's okay to let someone take care of you for once. I'm still figuring out how to do that. You'll learn. Just promise me you'll actually be happy instead of waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'll try. Good. Now when do I get to help you pack? Because I'm absolutely not missing the chance to see Victoria Sterling's fancy apartment before you guys clutter it up with kid stuff. Ethan laughed. This weekend, And fair warning, Victoria's already ordered a ton of stuff for Maya's room. I think she went a little overboard. Of course she did. She's a perfectionist. She probably color-coded the whole apartment. Actually, yeah, there's a Pinterest board. Rachel cracked up. This is going to be amazing. The Ice Queen has a Pinterest board for decorating a 6-year-old's room. I love everything about this. Telling Maya was somehow more nerve-wracking than anything else. Ethan sat her down that evening with biscuits sprawled across both their laps. I need to talk to you about something important, he started. Maya's eyes went wide. Are we in trouble again? No, baby. The opposite of trouble. Remember how you kept asking when Victoria was going to live with us? Uh-huh. Well, Victoria asked if we wanted to live with her instead. In her big apartment, she'd make you your own room and everything. What do you think about that? Maya's face lit up like Christmas morning. Really? We get to live with Victoria? If you want to, it's a big change. You'd have a new school, new friends, a new room, but we'd be together, all three of us. And Biscuit? Of course, Biscuit. Victoria already said he's part of the family too. Maya thought about this for approximately 3 seconds. Can my room be purple? Ethan laughed, relief flooding through him. I think that can be arranged. Then yes, I want to live with Victoria. Maya threw her arms around his neck. Daddy, does this mean Victoria is going to be my mom? The question hit Ethan like a freight train. He hadn't thought that far ahead, hadn't considered how Maya would process this arrangement. Victoria's Victoria, he said carefully. She loves you very much and she's going to be part of our family. What we call that is up to us. Is that okay? Maya nodded seriously. I like Victoria. She's nice and she's smart and she doesn't treat me like a baby. No, she definitely doesn't do that. Can we tell her I want a purple room? We can definitely tell her that. They called Victoria on video chat, and Maya's excited announcement about purple rooms made Victoria's face do something complicated and beautiful. She promised Maya they'd pick out paint colors together, maybe add some glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. I've never decorated a kid's room before, Victoria admitted. So you'll have to help me make sure it's perfect. I'm really good at decorating, Maya said confidently. I'll teach you. After Maya went to bed, Ethan called Victoria back. She answered immediately. She called you her Victoria, Ethan said. Earlier, when I told her about moving in, she said my Victoria with this huge smile. Victoria's voice went soft. That kid is going to make me cry constantly, isn't she? Probably. She's got a gift for it. I'm terrified I'm going to screw this up. What if I'm terrible at the everyday parent stuff? What if she realizes I don't actually know what I'm doing? Then she'll help you figure it out. She's 6, but she's wise beyond her years. And she already loves you. That's the hard part done. The hard part is not screwing up that love. You won't. You care too much to let that happen. Victoria sighed. I hope you're right. I've never wanted to be good at something as much as I want to be good at this. You will be. I know it. The moving process took 2 weeks. Ethan had expected chaos, but Victoria approached it like a military operation. Color-coded spreadsheets, professional movers, a timeline down to the hour. Maya's new room emerged like something out of a magazine, all purple walls and white furniture, and more books than any 6-year-old could read in a year. You went overboard, Ethan said, surveying the space. Victoria looked defensive. I wanted her to feel welcome, like this was really her home, not just my apartment she's staying in. She's gonna love it, but you know she'd have been happy with just the purple walls, right? I know, but I'm making up for lost time. For all the years I thought I'd never have this. Ethan pulled her close. You have it now, and you're going to be amazing at it. Their first week living together was an adjustment. Victoria's carefully ordered life collided with the chaos of single parenting. Maya's toys everywhere, Biscuit knocking over expensive vases, early morning cartoons disrupting the quiet routine. But instead of retreating into work mode, Victoria leaned into it. She learned to make pancakes. She instituted a family movie night. She read Maya bedtime stories with dramatic voices that made Maya giggle. And slowly, the apartment transformed from a sterile showcase into something warm and lived in. Photos multiplied on the walls. Maya's artwork covered the fridge. Biscuit's toys scattered across the living room. It looked like a home. Work settled into a new normal, too. The board had finally accepted that Victoria and Ethan's relationship wasn't going anywhere, and without Andrew stirring up trouble, the office gossip died down. Ethan got promoted to senior strategist. Victoria closed the Meridian deal that had started everything, earning the company a massive return. But the biggest change was in Victoria herself. She started leaving work at 6 most days, attended Maya's school events, joined the PTA, which both delighted and horrified the other parents. She still worked hard, still drove her team to excellence, but she'd found balance. She'd found a life outside the office. Sarah noticed it immediately when they met for their monthly dinner. "You look different," she said, studying Victoria. "Lighter somehow." "I'm happy," Victoria said simply. "Actually, genuinely happy. It's weird." "Get used to it. Happiness looks good on you." Sarah smiled. "How's Maya adjusting to the new place?" "She's great. Better than great. Last week she told her teacher that she has 2 homes now, the one we live in and the one in my heart. I cried in the school parking lot for 20 minutes. You're such a softie now. I love it. Ethan says I'm getting soft too. I caught myself singing Disney songs in the shower last week." "Disney songs, Sarah. What's happening to me?" "You're becoming human. About time." Victoria laughed. "Fair point. But seriously, I never thought I could have this. After everything that happened, the miscarriages, the divorce, the years of being alone, I'd convinced myself I wasn't meant for family, that I was too broken, too damaged. And now? Now I know that broken people can still build beautiful things, that you don't have to be perfect to be a good parent or a good partner. You just have to show up and try." Victoria took a sip of wine. "Maya asked me something yesterday that kind of floored me. She asked if it was okay to call me mom sometimes. Not all the time, just when it felt right." Sarah's eyes went wide. "What did you say?" "I said yes, and then I cried again because apparently that's what I do now. Just cry at everything." "What did Ethan say?" "He said he's been waiting for her to ask, said he could see it coming for weeks." Victoria smiled. "I'm going to screw this up sometimes. I know I will. I'll work too late or forget about a school event or say the wrong thing, but I'm going to keep trying because she's worth it. They both are." "You're going to be fine, Vic. You already are fine. You just needed to believe it." 2 months after they moved in together, Ethan came home from work to find Victoria and Maya in the kitchen, covered in flour and frosting. They were attempting to bake a cake, and judging by the disaster zone surrounding them, it wasn't going well. "What's the occasion?" Ethan asked, trying not to laugh at the frosting in Victoria's hair. "We're practicing," Maya announced, "for your birthday next week." "You know you could just buy a cake, right?" Victoria shot him a look. "Where's the fun in that? Besides, Maya wanted to make you something special, so we're making it together." "It's going to be chocolate," Maya added, "with chocolate frosting, your favorite." Ethan looked at these 2 people he loved more than anything, one covered in flour, one licking frosting off her fingers, and felt his chest get tight with emotion. "It's perfect," he said. "You're both perfect." "We're a mess," Victoria corrected, "but we're your mess." Later, after Maya was in bed and they'd cleaned up the kitchen disaster, Victoria and Ethan sat on the couch with glasses of wine. Biscuit snored on the floor at their feet. "I want to talk about something," Victoria said. "It's been on my mind for a while." Ethan's stomach clenched. "That sounds ominous." "It's not. At least I hope it's not." She set down her wine glass. "I want to make this official. Us. This family. I want to marry you." Ethan nearly dropped his own glass. "Are you proposing to me right now?" "I am. Badly, apparently. I had a whole speech planned, but I'm terrible at speeches when they're actually important." Victoria took his hand. "Ethan Hayes, you walked into my life on the worst night of my year and somehow made everything better. You saw me at my lowest and didn't run. You fought beside me when things got ugly. You let me into your daughter's life even though I had no idea what I was doing. And now I can't imagine my life without either of you in it." She pulled a small box from her pocket. Inside was a simple platinum band. "I know traditionally the man proposes, but nothing about us has been traditional. So I'm asking you, will you marry me? Will you let me be part of this family officially? Will you take a chance on building something permanent with someone who's still figuring out how to be a person? Ethan was aware he was crying but couldn't seem to stop. You really want this? Marriage? Forever? All of it? I want all of it. The good days and the hard days. The moments when everything's perfect, and the ones where we're just trying to survive. I want to raise Maya together. Maybe have more kids if we're brave enough. I want to grow old with you and argue about stupid things and fall asleep on the couch during movies. I want everything. Then yes. Of course, yes. Victoria slid the ring onto his finger and Ethan pulled her into his arms. They sat like that for a long time, holding each other, letting the reality of it sink in. We should tell Maya in the morning, Victoria said eventually. She'll want to help plan the wedding. Fair warning, she has opinions about everything. She gets that from you. Probably, but you love us anyway. I really do. They told Maya over breakfast the next morning. Her reaction involved shrieking, jumping up and down, and immediately demanding to know if she could be a flower girl. You can be whatever you want, Victoria said, laughing. It's your family, too. You get a vote in everything. Can we get married at the museum? With the dinosaurs? Ethan and Victoria exchanged glances. That's, actually not a terrible idea, Victoria said. I want to wear purple. And Biscuit needs a bow tie. Obviously, Biscuit needs a bow tie. These are all excellent suggestions. Rachel, when informed of the engagement, declared it the least surprising news ever and immediately started planning an engagement party. Sarah cried and said she'd known from the first time Victoria mentioned Ethan in group that this was going to happen. Mitchell sent a congratulatory bottle of champagne with a note that said, "About time." The wedding happened 3 months later in the Museum of Natural History's main hall, surrounded by dinosaur skeletons and people they loved. Maya wore purple and carried the rings. Biscuit wore a bow tie and behaved surprisingly well. Sarah stood as Victoria's maid of honor. Rachel stood for Ethan. Victoria's vows made half the room cry. She talked about finding love when she'd given up on it, about learning that strength meant letting people in, not keeping them out, about becoming part of a family she never thought she'd have. Ethan's vows were simpler. He talked about midnight encounters and second chances, about a woman who'd conquered an empire but still needed someone to hold her hand, about building a life from broken pieces and making it beautiful. When they kissed, Maya cheered the loudest. The reception was small but perfect, dancing and cake and toasts that were equal parts embarrassing and heartfelt. At one point, Ethan found himself standing with Victoria by the bar, watching Maya dance with Rachel and Sarah. We did it, Victoria said. We actually built something good out of all that chaos. Yeah, we did. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for something to go wrong. Maybe nothing else goes wrong. Maybe this is just what happy looks like. Victoria leaned her head on his shoulder. I could get used to happy. Good, because you're stuck with it now. 6 months later, Victoria stood in Maya's school auditorium watching her daughter, because Maya was her daughter now, in every way that mattered, perform in the class play. Maya had the lead role and was absolutely crushing it, speaking her lines with confidence and dramatic flair. Ethan sat beside Victoria holding her hand, grinning with pride. On Victoria's other side sat Sarah, who'd become Maya's honorary aunt and regular babysitter. Rachel was there too, filming everything on her phone and crying openly. When the play ended and Maya took her bow, she spotted them in the audience and waved. Victoria waved back and something inside her chest cracked open in the best possible way. This was her life now. School plays and family dinners, homework help and bedtime stories. Work that mattered but didn't consume her. A partner who challenged her and supported her in equal measure. A daughter who called her mom sometimes and made her laugh every day. After the play, they went out for ice cream, a family tradition they'd started months ago. Maya chattered about the performance, still high on adrenaline. Ethan teased her about forgetting one of her lines. Victoria just listened, soaking it all in. What are you thinking about? Ethan asked later, after Maya had finally crashed from her sugar high and fallen asleep in the car. About how different my life looks now compared to a year ago. About how I used to think success meant building an empire and never showing weakness. About how wrong I was. And what does success mean now? Victoria looked at Maya sleeping peacefully in the back seat, then at Ethan beside her. This, being part of something bigger than myself. loving people and letting them love me back, making pancakes on Saturday mornings and going to school plays and arguing about whose turn it is to walk the dog. That's a pretty good definition. Yeah, it is. Victoria squeezed his hand. Thank you for walking past my office that night, for not leaving when things got hard, for letting me into your life. Thank you for taking the chance, for being brave enough to try. They drove home through Manhattan streets, the city glittering around them. Victoria thought about the woman she'd been, crying on her office floor, convinced she was too broken for happiness. That woman had been wrong. Broken didn't mean unfixable. Damage didn't mean worthless. Sometimes the cracks were where the light got in. 3 years later, Victoria stood in the same hospital where she'd lost her first daughter, but this time she was holding a healthy, screaming newborn boy. Ethan stood beside her, exhausted and amazed, still gripping her hand. You did it, he said. You actually did it. Victoria looked down at their son, Thomas, named after Ethan's father, and felt tears streaming down her face. She'd been terrified throughout the entire pregnancy, convinced something would go wrong. But here he was, perfect and alive, and theirs. Maya burst into the room with Rachel, immediately demanding to see her baby brother. She climbed onto the bed carefully, mindful of Victoria's instructions, and stared at Thomas with wide eyes. He's so small, she said. Is he going to stay this small? No, he'll grow, Victoria said, just like you did. Can I hold him? Victoria and Ethan helped Maya hold the baby, supporting his head, showing her how to be gentle. Maya looked down at her brother with such pure love that Victoria started crying again. I'm going to teach him everything, Maya announced. How to read and draw and play with Biscuit. I'm going to be the best big sister ever. You already are, Victoria said. Later, after visiting hours ended, and it was just the 3 of them, 4 now, Victoria corrected herself. She nursed Thomas while Ethan dozed in the uncomfortable hospital chair. She thought about all the years she'd believed this moment was impossible, all the grief she'd carried, all the walls she'd built. And she thought about the man who'd walked past her office at exactly the right moment, who'd seen her crying and chosen to care instead of walking away, who'd fought beside her through corporate warfare and personal attacks, who'd introduced her to his daughter and trusted her not to break that precious gift, who'd loved her when she was at her worst and celebrated her when she was at her best. Life wasn't perfect. They still fought sometimes about work-life balance. Victoria still struggled with her need to control everything. Ethan still had bad days where the past came back to haunt him. Maya occasionally tested boundaries like all kids did, and now they had a newborn, which meant sleepless nights and exhaustion and a whole new set of challenges, but they faced it together, as a family, as partners who'd chosen each other deliberately and kept choosing each other every single day. Victoria looked down at Thomas, who'd fallen asleep mid-feeding, his tiny fist curled against her chest. Then she looked at Ethan, sleeping in that horrible chair because he refused to leave them, and she felt something she'd spent most of her life searching for. Peace, belonging, home. The corporate empire she'd built still mattered. Sterling Global was thriving, expanding into new markets, making waves in the industry. But it wasn't her whole identity anymore. It was just one part of a much bigger, messier, more beautiful life. She'd learned that strength wasn't about never breaking. It was about breaking and putting yourself back together, about asking for help when you needed it, about letting people see your worst moments and trusting them to stay anyway. She'd learned that love wasn't weakness. It was the bravest thing you could do, opening your heart knowing it might get shattered, but doing it anyway because the alternative was worse. She'd learned that family wasn't just blood. It was the people who showed up, who fought for you and with you, who held your hand through the nightmares and celebrated the victories, who made you better just by being in your life. Thomas stirred, making small baby noises. Victoria adjusted him gently and Ethan's eyes opened. You okay? He asked. I'm perfect, Victoria said, and for the first time in her life, she meant it without qualification or doubt. I love you, Ethan said, moving to sit beside her on the bed. I love you too. Both of you. All of you. Victoria leaned against him. Thank you for not leaving that night, for staying when I told you to go, for being stubborn enough to fight for this. Best decision I ever made, walking past your office, knocking on that door, choosing you every day after. They sat together in the quiet hospital room, their son sleeping between them, and watched the sun rise over Manhattan. Out there, the city was waking up. People were starting their days, facing their own battles, searching for their own version of happiness. And in here, two people who'd been broken in different ways had built something whole. They'd survived corporate warfare and personal attacks, and their own worst fears. They'd learned that happy endings weren't about everything being perfect. They were about finding someone who made the imperfect moments worth living through. Maya arrived the next morning with Rachel carrying a stuffed dinosaur for Thomas. "So he knows he's part of our family," she explained seriously, "because we always go to the museum together." Victoria pulled her daughter, because Maya would always be her daughter, biology be damned, into a hug. "That's perfect, sweetheart. You're perfect." "I know," Maya said matter-of-factly. "You tell me all the time." Ethan laughed. "She's definitely your daughter. That confidence is all you." "And the kindness is all you," Victoria countered. "We make a good team." "The best team," Maya agreed, carefully touching Thomas's tiny hand. "We're going to teach him everything, about business and dinosaurs and how to be brave even when you're scared." Victoria thought about bravery. Real bravery wasn't charging into battle fearlessly. It was being terrified and doing it anyway. It was letting people in when every instinct told you to build walls. It was loving fully knowing you might lose it all. It was trying again after you'd failed spectacularly. She'd been brave when she'd hired Ethan despite the personal complications. Brave when she'd refused to resign under pressure. Brave when she'd opened her heart to Maya despite her terror of failing as a parent. Brave when she'd chosen to try for another baby despite her history of loss. And look what bravery had bought her. This family, this life, this moment, surrounded by everyone she loved, holding her son, feeling her daughter's small hand in hers, meeting her husband's eyes across the bed, and seeing their whole future reflected back. "What are you thinking about?" Ethan asked, because he always knew when she was processing something big. "About how far we've come, about how that night in my office, the worst night of my year, turned out to be the beginning of the best thing that ever happened to me." "You mean us?" "I mean all of it. The relationship, the family, learning how to be human instead of just a CEO. You gave me that. Not just you, Maya too, and Sarah, and everyone who refused to let me hide behind my work." Victoria looked down at Thomas, then at Maya, then at Ethan. "I spent so long thinking I was too damaged for this, that I'd lost my chance at family when I lost my first daughter. But maybe we don't only get one chance. Maybe life gives us second chances if we're brave enough to take them." Maya, who'd been listening quietly, spoke up. "Mrs. Patterson says everyone deserves second chances. She said you just have to be willing to try again even when you're scared." "Mrs. Patterson is very wise," Victoria said. "She also says you're the scariest PTA member ever, but you make really good cupcakes for the bake sales." Ethan burst out laughing. Victoria tried to look offended, but couldn't quite manage it. "Scary but good at cupcakes. I'll take it." They stayed at the hospital another day, then brought Thomas home to the apartment that had transformed completely from Victoria's sterile showcase into a real family home. Biscuit sniffed the baby curiously, decided he was acceptable, and promptly became his devoted guardian. The first few weeks were chaos, sleepless nights and endless feedings, Maya adjusting to not being the only child, Victoria trying to balance new motherhood with running a company, Ethan doing most of the cooking because Victoria was still terrible at it even after 3 years of trying. But they figured it out together. Victoria learned to delegate more at work, finally accepting that the company wouldn't collapse if she took maternity leave. Ethan negotiated flexible hours so he could share the load. Maya became the world's most enthusiastic big sister, singing to Thomas when he cried, and proudly showing him off to anyone who'd listen. Sarah came over regularly with food and advice and the kind of no-nonsense support that only someone who'd survived new motherhood could provide. Rachel visited every weekend, documenting everything on her phone and declaring herself the official family photographer. And slowly, the chaos settled into a new rhythm. Messy and imperfect and absolutely right. One Saturday morning, 6 months after Thomas was born, Victoria woke to find the entire family in bed with her. Ethan on one side reading the newspaper, Maya on the other coloring in a notebook. Thomas sleeping peacefully in his bassinet next to the bed. Biscuit sprawled across everyone's feet. This was her life. This chaotic, beautiful, impossible life she'd never dared to dream about. "What are you smiling about?" Ethan asked, looking up from the paper. "Everything. All of this. Us." Maya looked up from her coloring. "Mom, can we go to the museum today? I want to show Thomas the dinosaurs." But she missed, Mom. She'd been calling Victoria that consistently for over a year now, and it still made Victoria's heart skip every time. "We can absolutely go to the museum," Victoria said, "but only if someone makes pancakes first." "Dad makes the best pancakes," Maya said loyally. "True," Victoria agreed, "but I'm getting better. I only burned them twice last week." "That is improvement," Ethan said seriously. "By next year, you might be almost competent." Victoria threw a pillow at him. He caught it, laughing, and Thomas stirred at the noise. Victoria scooped him up before he could start crying, holding him against her chest and breathing in that perfect baby smell. This was what mattered. Not the empire she'd built or the battles she'd won. This. Family breakfast and museum trips, bad pancakes and worse jokes, the ordinary moments that made up a life. She'd spent years defining herself by her achievements. CEO, self-made billionaire, corporate titan. Those things were still true, still part of who she was. But they weren't all she was anymore. Now she was also mom, wife, partner, friend, someone who made terrible pancakes but great cupcakes, someone who cried at school plays and laughed at bad jokes and loved so fiercely it scared her sometimes, someone who'd been broken and found a way to heal. Not by becoming perfect, but by accepting that broken pieces could still build something beautiful. "I love you," she said, looking around at her family. "All of you. More than I thought it was possible to love anything." "We love you too, Mom," Maya said. "Even when you burn the pancakes." "Especially when I burn the pancakes," Ethan added. "It's character building." Victoria laughed, and Thomas gurgled, and Biscuit barked. And somewhere in the chaos of that moment, she found exactly what she'd been searching for all along. Not perfection, not success, not control, just love. In all its messy, complicated, absolutely perfect glory. And that, she thought, holding her son while her daughter colored and her husband read the paper and their ridiculous dog tried to steal someone's socks, was more than enough. It was everything.